Yeah, okay, ready to go. Okay. Well, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Okay, Danielle, please roll call.
Thank
Danielle,
you.
okay,
Thank you. President Say,
yes, present.
Vice President Yu,
Present.
Clerk Nishii,
Present.
Board Member Dr. Apodaca,
Here.
Board Member Mr. Beach,
Present.
Board Member Dr. Eugenio,
Here.
Board Member Dr. Rios.
Here.
Thank you.
We all have such a great energy today. So this evening, we will be discussing the following in closed section: conference with the labor negotiator, which is update our negotiation with ABCFT, ABSCME, and the CSEA. Okay. Now to the public comment. Do we have any public comment for clerk, Mr. Nishii? For the closed sections? You're mute. No? So seeing none, I'm going to move to closed section. May I have a motion to move to closed section, please?
So moved, Apodaca.
Thank you.
Second, Sue.
Thank you. Then all in favor, please say yes.
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 Aye. Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Now we go to closed section. Thank you. Okay, now the board back in the open section. May I have a motion to move today's back to the open section?
So move, Sue.
Second, Brad.
Daniel, can you roll call, please?
Sure, yes. Dr. Apodaca,
Here.
Mr. Beach,
Present.
Dr. Eugenio,
Here.
Mr. Nishii,
Present.
Dr. Rios,
Present.
Mrs. Say,
Present?
Mrs. Yu.
Present.
Motion
you, Dan.
passes 7-0.
Thank you, Danielle. We welcome public comments. Comments submitted will be presenting during the public comments section, which is limited to 1 hour, and each speaker to one presentation of 5 minutes, unless the board wishes to waive the time limit. Those who have a group concern are encouraged to select a spokesperson to address the board. Comments submitted regarding a specific agenda item will be presented following the staff comments and prior to the board discussion and take action. As another thing I want to remind all my colleagues here, for tonight, I thought this is probably much easier for all of us. For tonight's agenda, either the action item or a consent item information, if you have any common questions, anything, please type and please go to chat room, identify yourself, and our clerk, Mr. Nishii, will let me know who's first, who's second, who's the third. Just want to let everyone, reminds everyone. The same thing as the public comment, okay? So for tonight, in closed session, the board discussed conference with the labor negotiator, update on negotiations with ABCFT, AFSCME, and the CSEA. And next, for tonight, Pledge of Allegiance, I ask our board member, Mr. Beach, to lead us tonight. Mr. Beach, are you there?
Please stand. Join us in the flag salute. Ready, begin. I pledge
I pledge
allegiance.
allegiance to the
I
flag
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
and to the
for which stands
republic for which it
One
stands,
nation,
one nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, board member, Mr. Beach.
To revisit the definition I used last time regarding equity. Equity in
Thank you.
education requires putting separate-
The presentation for tonight
Reach
on
out.
Spotlight on Teaching and Learning actually will be leading by our communication officer,
For this meeting, I asked
Mr.
staff
Smith,
to
Scott Smith, and this is for communication quarterly update. Mr. Smith, are you ready?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, President Say, and good evening to you, Vice President Yu, Clerk Nishii, and board members. Thank you so much for your time. As I've said many times now, communications between the district and our families and community has never been more important. It's hard to believe that we haven't heard the laughter of our students at our schools for nearly a year now. In the absence of having a physical connection to our school, our families are relying on electronic communications from our schools and district. First of all, you need to know that our school administrators and district leaders do an outstanding job of communicating with our students and families. Many of our schools have daily or weekly online news shows run by students, creating a strong student-to-student link. Our administrators share weekly or monthly updates about all that's going on at their schools and important district information. Almost every school has a very strong and active presence on social media as well. Our weekly community update continues to go out to our families and communities each Thursday evening, providing timely updates and information in both English and Spanish. This publication averages about 3,000 opens a week. It's important for our leader, Dr. Sue, to be out in front of the ABC community, so she and I continue to share our video conversations where we cover a variety of topics. We've had more than 9,000 views since we started broadcasting these videos on ABC Stories YouTube channel. She's also been on the forefront of sharing her thoughts about current issues. Last month, she shared a letter with families and staff about the violence that occurred in our nation's capital. Our online presence continues to grow. Our followers on the ABC Stories Instagram page is up by over 50% since last July, and our reach on Twitter is up by over 3,000 per month from last year. Facebook and Instagram have shown to be the best way to connect with our families and community. We've grown our followers by about 200 since July and average well over 5,000 views per month, with great engagement, meaning they're clicking on our messages and photos. Local media continues to carry the district's stories. Since July, we have had 14 stories carried by both local and regional newspapers in both print and online editions, covering stories about the district's flu shot clinics, schools serving there we go, as voting centers, to also our schools being named this year's honor roll. With the potential of reopening in the future, we continue to communicate updates with our communities online. In tandem with the district's Safe Schools for All plan, we're finishing production of videos showing all the changes our students and families will experience when they return to school. Most of the primary footage has been filmed and production is underway. We've also worked on the transparency of how COVID is impacting our schools. We have published a dashboard showing current and historical information about the cases of COVID-19 in our schools, facilities, and offices. It can be found under the Family tab on our website. The district's COVID compliance team is now publishing Make It Safe Mondays, a weekly email sent to our staff with helpful information and links to resources. Our goal is to keep COVID safety top of mind with our staff across the district. Thank you for your time, and we'll continue working hard to communicate with our students, families, staff, and the communities we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. May I have a motion to approve the agenda for regular meeting of February 2nd, 2021?
So moved. Apodaca.
Second, Eugenio.
Danielle, can you do roll call for me, please?
Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishi,
Yes.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
Mrs. Say,
Yes.
Mrs. Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Danielle. Next, approved minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of January the 19th, 2021?
So moved.
So moved. Sue.
I'll second.
Thank you. Danielle, please roll call.
Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishi,
Yes.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
Mrs. Say,
Yes.
Mrs. Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next, student board representatives. We're going to have two students. One is Mr. Brian Koo, and the other one, Dan Zaccharia from Cerrito High School. Are they here? Our student from Cerrito High School?
We're here.
I'd like to say hi to them.
Hello.
Hi. Are you
Hello.
ready to give a report? And Brian? Okay, go
Yes,
ahead. The floor is yours now. Mhm.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Mrs. Sophia Say, Board Vice President Mrs. Sue Yu, ABC School Board members, and Superintendent Dr. Mary Sue. My name is Jaden Zechariah,
And I am Brian Koo.
and we are delighted to have the honor of sharing Cerritos High School's events and activities which have taken place throughout the year, representing our school as the two student board representatives. Since the beginning of the school year, our ASB cabinet has been holding events online, including the first ever virtual sneak peek assembly, which highlighted future ASB events for the year, Club Week, which showcased the various clubs at CHS, as well as Hispanic Heritage Month, which highlighted each Hispanic country's food, traditions, and festivals, even featuring musical performances from students, teachers, and alumni. Events such as ASB's full concert and caroling in the quad have also taken place virtually, with students submitting musical performances which are showcased through morning announcements for our school to watch. Additionally, the ASB Ambassadors of Goodwill have been holding media mashes for Halloween and the holidays, where students were able to display their talents through dance, poetry, baking, and more by posting on their social media platforms. Cerritos High School's Red Ribbon Week was also conducted virtually by the Commissioners of Community Relations, with the theme Be Happy, Be Brave, Be Drug-Free being our key focus, with each club at our school taking part in to spread awareness.
The ASB Commissioners of Spirit have also been holding virtual Spirit Weeks, which feature a handful of unique events for students to partake in, such as dress-up days, scavenger hunts, and engaging challenges for a school. For the last semester, the freshman class officers have been holding virtual bonding events, where the freshman class would play games such as Among Us, and they were able to get up to 89 participants joining them for fun events to bring the class together. Cerritos High School's SpongeBob-themed canned food drive of 2020 was held by ASB's executive board, Victoria Costa, William Reed, Taylor Kim, and Lionel Lee, where they received a huge amount of donations of canned food to send to the organization We Care. Additionally, the executive board has been planning a district-wide Spirit Week alongside Gar High School, Artesia High School, and Whitney High School's ASB with virtual events related to the TV series Avatar, The Last Airbender. In the last few weeks of January, the ASB Commissioners of Academics and Elections, alongside the senior class officers, have been conducting homecoming voting virtually, where the senior class has been able to place votes for the homecoming court, with homecoming activities held by the senior class officers yet to come.
Additionally, Cerritos High took part in the Great Kindness Challenge held by ASB's Ambassadors of Goodwill, which promoted being kind to ourselves and others through taking part in dress-up days and kindness challenges. The Ambassadors of Goodwill are also calling on Cerritos High School students with small businesses to help out with Valentine grams, which will also be sold throughout this month. ASB's Mix It Up Day was held online through Zoom by the Commissioners of Multicultural Affairs, where students were able to take part in fun and exciting games to bond and get to know each other better. This February, our ASB Commissioners of Multicultural Affairs will be hosting events alongside the Black Student Union Club by supporting Black-owned businesses, holding performances and speaker events, which will be broadcasted through announcements and social media.
Regarding athletics, Cerritos High is moving towards social distancing practices, with coaches staying in contact with sports teams. Cerritos High School also welcomes new coaches, Coach Carter for football, Coach Lozana for boys volleyball, Coach Permecki for wrestling, and Mr. and Mrs. Wentz for golf. Cerritos High School would also like to thank District and Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Toan Nguyen, for supporting the upgrades needed for our school's renovated weight room. Regarding extracurriculars such as Model United Nations, we have been conducting and planning conferences linking students on the international level, holding our first international conferences in April and May. As far as our dance team, they have been actively making choreography, teaching through Zoom, and getting ready for competitions with a competitive spirit. CHS's yearbook has actively covered our school's events, is yet to cover our homecoming royalty and elective fair, and are currently gathering pictures of athletic conditioning outside of sports, as well as personal ad designs for seniors. As for academics, the Educational Results Partnership selected Cerritos High School for the prestigious recognition as 2019-2020 Honor Roll School. Our school has also hosted the PSAT for 100 juniors in our school gyms. Following COVID-19 guidelines efficiently, and our CHS administration hosted a drive-through celebration lunch for students who earned 3 or higher on AP tests, all conducted following COVID-19 guidelines.
Cerritos High School has started off this year strong and continues to strive for excellence, supporting staff and the student body as a whole. We hope that we can have a year full of success, staying ready, respectful, and real, following the Cerritos way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zachariah, and also Mr. Koo. And what a wonderful update information about Cerritos High School. I really our board really appreciate you giving such a great detail. And definitely, if next week I will go visit your weight room and see what's the new things there. And thank you, Ms. Koo, to mention that. Appreciate. Any other comments of our board here? To our wonderful students. Okay, let's see.
Yes,
first.
President, Madam President.
After you, there will be Mr. Nishi, I believe so. So far, that's how I see the blue raised hand. But please go to chat room and let me know.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead. Ms. Yu,
Okay,
Vice
thank you.
President.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, Jaden and Brian, first of all, I want to welcome you to our board meeting and thank you for coming and sharing with such great news. It's so wonderful to hear that you guys are doing all that you can during this pandemic to keep the student body engaged, and so encouraging to hear that the school is doing something very special during the Black History Month, and really hope that all of our students learn the history and all the road that Dr. Martin Luther King paved for all of us colored people. So really appreciate all that you do, all the activities, and keeping up with the MUN, keeping up with the sports. So good to hear, and thank you so much for coming out to share with us, and hope that you guys will have the best for the rest of the pandemic. Hang in there. I mean, I know it must be so difficult for all of you teenagers. I have a couple at home too. So keep up the good work to all of you at ASB and the rest of the school body. Thank you so much.
Thank you, VP, Ms. Yu. Next one will be Mr. Nishii.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate, keep up the good work. It's a challenging environment to be a president and in this kind of environment, and think of new ways of engaging with the students. That's not an easy task, but I'm sure when you graduate and you're looking for a job, they're going to say, you were the president during this year and you were able to successfully do these events. That's going to be pretty amazing. I had a few questions though. So there's a golf team. How competitive is our golf team at Cerritos High School? Anybody?
Oh, for golf, yeah, I know we've had a golf team for a while, but I know since it's a sport that can be practiced remotely with guidance practices, I think it's something that our golf team has been working on. Despite season not, happening right now, they're still preparing for it.
And how about swimming? Is swimming competitive at Cerritos High School?
Swimming is also a sport that we take seriously at Cerritos, and I believe that they're not getting together and practicing for now, but we're looking forward to updates, and yeah, as usual, we're still conditioning, practicing, and maybe even getting ready for CIF if that happens.
Where's the pool in Cerritos High School though?
For the pool, traditionally,
I've never seen it.
They usually practice at CPE, Cerritos Park East. That's where they practice.
That's all the way other side of town, isn't it? Yeah.
Actually, it is a bit it's not a bit of a drive, but it is approximately like 5 minutes from the school. So usually swimmers on water polo or swim would have to get their rides after lunch for 6th period to conduct practice.
So the driving there. Thank you. That's all. Thank you for your service to the community. This will be a memorable year, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, Cerritos High School does not have swimming pool. We're leasing from the city of Cerritos. I think we're paying about $40,000 each year leasing that place. Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Wow.
Toy.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll let you know. Yeah, that was one of our wishes to have a swimming pool for Cerritos High School. So Okay, so next one, we are going to thank you very much, appreciate, and stay here, join with us still. If you have any question, concern, you can also come on the podium and talk to us, okay? And thank you again once. So now may I have, now we're going to superintendent report. Dr. Su?
Thank you very much for the great report by Jaden and Brian just a few minutes ago. I just really appreciated all the activities that are taking place at Cerritos High School now. So this month is Black History Month. February is Black History Month, and many of our educators are somewhat wondering how they should teach their students about this celebrated month in the context of recent events and the movement to root out racial inequity. This month honors the achievement of African Americans and recognizes the many ways in which they have contributed to American culture and led the way in advocating for civil rights, inclusion, and racial equality. I know that recently we sent to the board all the activities that are taking place and the strategies taking place in our middle schools and high schools about celebrating Black History Month. We're going to do the same thing on February the 16th in honoring our Black History Month, as well as showcase the things that are going on in elementary schools as well. So last week was Kindness Week throughout the district. I shared a book called Grandfather's Journey, written by Alan Say, through a video on demonstrating Kindness Week. Please check the school's Twitter websites to see what our staff and students have been able to do during Kindness Week. They have done amazing work with promoting Kindness Week throughout last week. On Monday, January the 25th, we held a follow-up budget meeting with members of our labor groups, including ABCFT, CSEA, AFSCME, and ABCMA. We discussed the governor's budget proposal plan for 2021 through 2022. We recognize that some of it may change, but we discussed the impact it might have on our district. This presentation will also be discussed in tonight's board meeting as an information item. Every Tuesday mornings, I tune into the COVID-19 and its impact on educational institutions that's provided by our legal counsel, AALRR. They have provided continuous updates every week since the pandemic began. Later in the morning, I met with all the middle school principals on January 26th. We discussed numerous topics, including their positions on reopening schools and issues related to the equity officer that we'll be discussing tonight. Every Thursday morning, I also participate with the LACO telebriefing hosted by Dr. Deborah Duardo, Superintendent of LACO. Every week, both Dr. Barbara Farrer and Dr. Ron Gilchick participate in the event to provide updates about the pandemic. On Thursday evening, we held a School of Choice workshop for parents and families. Over 368 people attended the meeting. Tim Catlin did an excellent job presenting and responding to the families' questions. As a friendly reminder, our School of Choice applications will begin on March the 1st till March the 31st of 2021. On Friday afternoon, I was a panel speaker with the California Latino Superintendents and Administrators Conference. The topic I discussed was focus on results advancing organizational change. The other panelists include Tracy Noriega from San Lorenzo Unified School District, Dr. Shanna Henry at San Juan Unified School District, Joey Mata from Newport Mesa Unified School District. The moderator was Phil Kwan, who's a former superintendent of Cupertino Unified School District. I was just so delighted to see a number of participants who have students in ABC Unified School District. It was a wonderful presentation with very positive feedback from the participants. Yesterday, over 5,000 N95 masks were donated by Jagbir Singh of United Sikhs in Artesia. I met with Mr. Singh yesterday when the donation was made. I would like to thank former board member Letty Mendoza for orchestrating this wonderful donation to our district. Later in the afternoon, I met with all of our elementary principals. They shared their accomplishments that have been a part of this year, as well as challenges that they are facing. Needless to say, we can make a difference in advancing our goals and making improvements in communication, standard protocols, and consistent messaging from the district. Besides the Leadership Enrichment Academy that bring all of our principals together, I will continue to meet with both the elementary and secondary principals in small groups every month. And this concludes my report, President Say.
Thank you, Dr. Su. For employer representative, Ray is here, but since the school just started, so he didn't have anything for report today. Next one is our public hearing. This is the initial proposal from ABCFT. I would like to open a public hearing on the initial proposal submitted by the ABC American Federation of Teachers, Local 2317, California Federation of Teachers, American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO, to reopen negotiations for the 2020 to 2021 school year with the reopen limit to Article 7, school calendar, Article 10, salary, Article 11, health and welfare benefits, and Article 26, reopeners. Copy of initial proposal are available to the public to view. Do you have any public comment? Remember, Clerk, Mr. Nishii.
Mr. Smith, do we have any public comments? I'm not hearing any.
Not on this item, I don't think.
So hearing no comments, the public hearing is closed.
Oh.
Next is a district response to the ABCFT initial proposal. I would like to open to a public hearing on the ABC Unified School District response to the ABC American Federation of Teachers, Local 2317, California Federation of Teachers, American Federation of Teachers / AFL-CIO initial proposal to reopen negotiations for the 2020 to 2021 school year on Article 7, school calendars, Article 10, salary, Article 11, health and welfare benefits, Article 20, leave of absence, and Article 26, reopeners. Copy of district response available for the public to hear. Do we have any comments? Board Clerk, Ms. Nishii.
Not on this item.
Is none, right? Okay, thank you. Hearing no comments, the public hearing is closed. Next item is public comments. Clerk Nishii, the floor is yours.
Persons wishing to address the board should provide public comments during the public comments section via the following method: myabcusd.org/board meeting and use the link of the phone number to participate in the Zoom meeting. If using Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature during the public comments portion of the agenda or during the public comments time after an agenda item. If using a phone, please use 9 to raise your hand during the public comments portion of the agenda or during the public comments time after an agenda item. Then use 6 to unmute yourself when you're called on to speak. So that's important. Press 6 when you want to unmute yourself. Comments will be presented during the public comment section, which are limited to 1 hour, and each speaker to 1 presentation, 5 minutes, unless the board wishes to waive the time limit. Those who have a group concern are encouraged to select a spokesperson to address the board. Comments submitted regarding specific agenda item will be presented following the staff comments and prior to the board's discussion and taking action. Adverse comments about a person's race, ancestry, ethnic group, identification, religion, color, national orientation, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender, mental or physical handicap, or age may not be made. Concerns presented to the board will be followed up and addressed by the appropriate staff. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any public comments?
We do, and I'd like to remind those that are on the Zoom call to raise their hand now. Our first public comment is from Mr. Sylvester Annie. Sylvester, go ahead and unmute.
Good evening. How are you doing?
We're fine, thank you.
Okay. So public comment. Question. I do have a question in terms of the ABCFT proposal. Is that public knowledge? Can we see that or no?
It's on our district's website.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll go check that out. But then I want to talk about one of the things I want to talk about was what the superintendent was discussing with Black history. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity to really discuss accurate Black history. I think for much of our history, it's been very watered down and translated in a digestible way that doesn't really get to the root of the issues. And I think that if approaching it in a more direct and honest way will help bridge the gap between understanding why so many of the issues that we've been dealing with since 1619, when the first slaves were brought to Jamestown in Virginia, till now, why so many of those issues are still prevalent in today's society. And part of that's because as a country, we haven't addressed that as a whole. And I've sent over documents recently as far as like my nonprofit's programs discussing multicultural psychology, specifically African-American history. And, hopefully that there's space for that to be discussed in the future within this month on those issues. Another thing that I wanted to discuss, I haven't looked at, that ABCFT proposal yet, but then I really want to stress that we have the opportunity to shape and change the type of society and the type of education system that we're going to have, not only for students, but for teachers too. I think that over this pandemic, we realized how important and how forgotten we've treated our teachers. We haven't, I don't feel like we've compensated our teachers as much as we should have. And going back into the future where we're going to start coming back into schools, I think that we have to not forget all the issues that were going on within school districts around the country and where mental health was with our students and how their mental health is going to be now coming out of the pandemic and now coming into the school, into school whenever they do come back on campus. So I think that's something that we need to address. And then finally, I want to stand in solidarity with the students who have been speaking out against sexual harassment. I think it's something that we all need to do. I think that we all need to come together, collaborate with the students and hear from them exactly what it is they feel like they need to be saved. These students are leaders. They're coming up with proposals, and I'm hoping that the board is open to talking with and creating policies that reflect and meet the needs of these students that are so strong. And I support and stand in solidarity with them. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvester.
I'd just like to remind the public speakers that we are not actually permitted to respond individually to each of these comments due to the Brown Act, which prevents us from discussing a non-agendized item. And we need to provide the public notice of that. So it's not that we don't want to talk about it, but we're not permitted to do that without violating the Brown Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The next speaker is Dana. Dana, please unmute. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, so as many parents may know, ABC Unified has had many students, staff, and alumni complain about sexual harassment within the last, I would say, 6 or 7 months. And in those complaints, they would say that they feel that nothing is done about it. We've already been talking about this, so you already know. But we are asking parents and community members to join us who are also against this happening in our schools. We've now made a group email. So if you want to contact us about that, I'll give that to you. It's abcagainsTSH@gmail.com. So again, if you're a parent or community member who would like to combat sexual harassment in this district, please contact that email. Another thing before I get off, I just want to address the board on another thing. You say you're not allowed to, respond right now, but if someone could give me an email or an answer later, that would be great. So quite frequently, you guys are sending out community updates to students and parents to their emails about what's going on. And I remember that you guys sent one out for after George Floyd's death and just standed in solidarity with that. While I appreciate that, it leaves me to wonder why you didn't send one out when community members were begging and asking you for help with sexual harassment in schools. That was also something to make a statement about, and that was just as important. So if anyone on the board, like I said, could respond to me about that later, that would be great, because I didn't see a reason to not address that. Thank you.
Our district people will contact you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana. The next speaker we have is Kirit. Mr. Chauhan, please unmute. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Good evening, board members, President Sue, President Say, and Superintendent Sue. I have a need to return to the topic of turmoil and tangentially related harassment policy. I was trained as an engineer, but somehow I became a teacher. Following the incident at the Capitol in Washington, I was introspective as to why we got into that situation. How could so many people be convinced that what they did was legal or allowable? Perhaps these two nuggets of research may move the needle for conversation. Yale University child study found that if a teacher is given a background information about the parent, for example, that the parent, she's a single mom on low income, has depression, and working 3 jobs, made the teacher more empathetic towards the parent and the child. But this only held true if the teacher and the students were of the same race. Not making it up, that's the research. So a white teacher is much more sympathetic to a white parent. A Black or an African-American parent is much more, a teacher is sympathetic to a parent who's African-American. Extend this a little further, and perhaps you may understand why when the message is delivered by a person of the same race, it is received much better. There's another topic that we perhaps need to broach upon, which is implicit bias. I would like you to go to YouTube and look up a gentleman by the name of Derald Wing Sue. That's D-E-A-R-L-D. Last name is Sue, but he spells it S-U-E, of Columbia University. And listen to the research behind anti-bias training and microaggression and determine if we need to do some work in our district. That is to work to complement the work that we've already started around cultural proficiency. We are hearing from students and community members about engagement. They're not hearing what they want to hear. Microaggression is not micro to the individual who receives that aggression. And to my friend Sylvester, mental health is of concern. In this age right now, during this time, our students are highly stressed. We all know it, we admit it. In fact, this district has done a lot to meet the needs of mental health of our students. But if we admit that there is, a student said to me during an event, If teachers are allowed to take days off, why are students not allowed to take days off without any retribution? Therefore, I would like the board to consider allowing students to take day off that would not punish you nor the student of taking a mental day off. Our kids are highly stressed, and if we ought to meet their needs, we need to consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jahan. Our next speaker is Sharday Carrington. Oh, Sharday, we can't, for some reason, we're not being allowed to allow you to talk because you have an older version of Zoom. If you'd like, you can call in or submit your comment in writing and we will get it to the board's attention, but it's not, the Zoom is not allowing us to have you speak. I apologize for that.
What number would she call in?
She can call into excuse me, I should have that clerk and she, but I don't have it right at this moment. I will get that and we will announce that. But Sharday, I'm sorry, I'm trying to allow you to talk, but it won't allow me to. The meeting number is 669-900-9128. Webinar ID is 867-0157-7201. And the passcode is 152432. Thank you.
And then to raise your hand, you dial £9, and if you want to unmute, you dial 6.
And we will have a second public comment session at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Mr. Smith, can she see on the chat area, chat room? If we can type it out there? No?
Not in this situation, Madam President.
Let's go to the next one, then we'll follow up and see, give her a chance and try to contact her when you can do it for us, okay?
And the next one is Jen Perdome Booker. Jen, please unmute.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
We can.
Wonderful.
Yes, Ms. Booker. Yes.
Good evening, ABCUSD School Board Superintendent Dr. Sue. This is a follow-up comment based on the last meeting. Just a request that the equity officer and office be afforded an opportunity to propose systemic change within ABCUSD on how we take ownership of California Educational Code and district policies that identify harassment in parallel with discrimination policies on the basis of student and or teacher protected status. Protected status in the case of Resolution 19-114 in its own fashion is described as religious creed, color, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, gender identity, gender expression, sex or sexual orientation. For additional clarification, this policy would not be limited to employment codes that are currently outlined by the district. It would be extended to protect the ABCUSD community at large, to be inclusive of its teachers and students beyond the basis of employment with guidance from the Title IX office. Qualitative attention should be paid to surrounding school districts with comparable offices in place, in addition to resources that support the unique makeup of our district. With regards to the previous conversation on the officer's proposed roles and responsibilities and coordination with human resources, there's a specific bullet point that calls attention to that. This function is also a higher practice in school systems and enterprises to assist their organization with systemic implementation of diversity, inclusion, and equity initiatives at their organization. It is not in itself a human resource officer. They act in complement and in coordination with human resources to ensure that there are equitable practices in hiring. For example, Ben Hassan, the Senior Vice President and Chief Culture Diversity Inclusion Officer for Walmart. He is responsible for the continued development of the evolution of the company's culture, the development of their behaviors that embrace diversity inclusion at all levels of their company, and the promotion of the company's external reputation, as a great place to work. Izen Okoro, Head of Inclusion and Diversity at H&M, is tasked with creating strategic framework, facilitating and leading the company's mission to foster diversity, inclusion, democracy even, and respect for all of its employees. As Chief Diversity Officer at Microsoft, Lindsay Ray McIntyre pushed the company's current organization-wide initiatives to create a diverse and inclusive environment. She is known for implementing innovative transformational HR strategies that drive business performance and capture human resource shifts in the marketplace to keep Microsoft competitive and attractive. And I also might mention her position as a diversity officer is so powerful that in itself, it has helped to evolve the entire tech industry and how it addresses diversity and inclusion and equity and unity needs within the industry as a whole. So let's not set unnecessary limitations on the role. I think that the bulleted responsibilities are clear enough to allow the officer to act in their role based on industry standards, and also act in their role with support from the Title IX office so that they have some structural variances, obviously based on what is required by the state of California. And I think that based on what examples I provided here, they would not be beyond their realm in supporting that office. I think it is appropriate that they offer support not just within the community, but also ensuring that we are adhering to our equitable initiatives systemically within the district. That is all from me, Scott. Thank you so much for your time, ABCUSD School Board and Dr. Sue, and the community that are also on the call. Thank you.
For the future communication officer, Mr. Smith, if we can identify them, if the subjects related to today's action item, we probably can ask them to present at the item which we're going to discuss. That'd be really great. Thanks. Go ahead. The next one, please.
That is the last. That was the last public speaker.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Clerk Ms. Nishi and Mr. Smith. Thank you very much. So now we are going to the consent calendar. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
So moved, Sue. Second, Sue.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering, is there anyone who wishes to remove any item to be considered separately? If none, Danielle, please roll call.
Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishii,
Yes.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
Mrs. Say,
Yes.
Mrs. Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next then is to our only action item today. And we, as our board, agreed to pull 2.28, establish new job classification, job description, and range of equity officer. So we put back, everything's not changed. So for back and forth discussion. So may I have a motion to approve the new job classification, job description, and range for equity officer?
So moved, Nishi.
Sue. Second, Sue.
Thank you. Dr. Zillow.
Well, good evening, President Say, board members, Dr. Sue. As President Say indicated, we brought this item back, and we brought it back exactly as it was previously, since no decisions were made and there was good conversation happening. And so we will plan to listen and go through this again this evening, just to make sure that we're all on the same page together. I think of value in this conversation, since we reviewed it last time, I'd like to note that part of what you see in the duties and responsibilities is an attempt to give this new equity position an opportunity and an avenue to go into each aspect of our district and look at how we are functioning and the equity with which we are functioning in that area. So it's not responsibilities falling all on them, but it's responsibilities to collaborate and help us move forward and make changes where needed. Of importance to note, I think, is we saw this week where Cerritos College also implemented their own diversity and equity person. And that person too is looking at the other side of this, which is the discrimination complaints that can come, whether they're about gender and sex in a Title IX piece, or if they're about all of the other protected classes, race, religion, in a Title VI piece. So really the scope of this job is about having the ability and latitude, if you will, to work collaboratively with all of our sites, with our departments, with our programs, to really make sure that we're changing practices to be more equitable if that is needed, but also to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students, meeting the needs of those that we employ in a way that is fair. And so in terms of this position, we are looking to find someone that can collaborate and work with all of our departments and programs so that the transitions and changes that we need to make to our system are done in a way that is good for those we serve. So.
Thank you, Dr. Zelo. Anyone wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item need to use the raise your hand feature on Zoom at this time. Board Clerk, do we have anyone? Public comment.
So I am looking at the chat, and Dr. Rios wishes to have a comment.
Well, we have public comments prior to the board discussion, Clerk Nishii, and we do have one already. Sorry to jump in there.
So we'll start with that. Public comment.
The first public comment is the phone number ending in 441. Go ahead and unmute. Go right ahead.
Hello, board members. Oh, hello. Hello, board members and superintendent. My name is Therese Rotondo, and I just had some concerns and questions about the equity officer position. First, I would just like to again highlight the importance of having ethnically diverse teachers, more specifically Black teachers. And also wanted to question if ethnic studies would be a requirement within ABC Unified School District. And I have a question about the qualifications. Equity officer will be chair of diversity, unity, and equity committee, yet their qualifications of such is not mandatory to the position. So I was wondering if those qualities would be added. And I also wanted to ask about the early college program. If, like, we're speaking of equity, but that opportunity is not offered to every student, every high school student at ABC, just Whitney. So I was wondering if that program will at least next year be offered to schools like Artesia, Gar, Cerritos, and Tracy. And that's about it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have two more, Madam President.
Thank
the
you.
next one is a phone number ending in 399. Please unmute and go ahead and speak. You have 5 minutes. Go right ahead.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Sade Carrington. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my computer earlier, but I was able to get in this way. So thank you for that information. I just wanted to speak about the diversity and inclusion officer position that is being created. While that is a fantastic stride in the right direction, I think that it should actually be a committee. It's not a job that can fall to one person. Unfortunately, one person did not make the circumstances that warranted the position. And so it's going to take a significant amount of legwork in order to truly accomplish and create change. In order to implement plans, promote diversity, it's a significant undertaking that one person just wouldn't be fully equipped to do on the level that needs to happen. There are, enumerate schools and students within the district, staff, et cetera. And so I just would like to submit that it be considered that does not just be something for one person, but an actual team, task force, committee, however you'd like to define it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Sylvester Ani. Sylvester, go ahead.
So I'd like to echo the sentiments of the first two callers. First and foremost, when we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion, that definitely needs to be represented by the individual or individuals that are in that position, specifically people of color that can speak to that with their lived experience. I'll say for myself personally, and just to put it into context, if we didn't already know, there's two Americas that we're living in. And for me, being a Black American in America, I have to not only live life being Black, but I also have to understand how to move in and through white America. And that's not something that everybody can speak to. A lot of times people come from a place where they operate from within their bubble, and that shapes their worldview. And the amazing thing from like coming from culture, from color, is that you not only have your worldview shaped by your culture, but then you also have acquired the worldview of the dominant class in terms of America being mostly white. You also acquire that lived experience as well. And you have to learn how to operate within that. And that needs to be reflected in, the individuals who would operate on this. I would agree with it being a committee, because just like, with the world, it's a melting pot, and just to put that on one person, I think that we're restricting different types of worldviews by just putting that and placing that all on one individual. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We do have one more speaker. We have Amber Hamilton. Amber, please, actually we'll have one more after this. Amber, please unmute, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Amber Hamilton. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I grew up in Cerritos. I went to school in ABC. I have nieces and nephews that are enrolled in the ABC schools. I'm happy that the district is looking into the equity officer, the discrimination and treatment that I endured as a Black student at Cerritos High School. I never want my nieces and nephews to endure that. My concern is that only hiring one person to deal with these deep-seated issues is not enough. There needs to be multiple people who are invested in examining the current issues in this district and making sure this does not happen anymore. I hope the board is open to not just making this a one-off position, but invest in expanding this into a team of people. Thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you, Amber. The next speaker is Patricia King. Patricia, go ahead and unmute. You have 5 minutes. Patricia, go ahead and unmute. You have 5 minutes. Patricia, go ahead.
Dial 6.
Tricia, we can't hear you. Sorry, Tricia, we'll move on, and you can participate during the second round of public comments later if we can get you.
Thank you, Mr.
Going.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay. Now for the board discussion, I have the range from here. First one will be Dr. Rios. Second will be Dr. Abadaka. Third will Dr. Eugenio. The fourth will be board member Mr. Beach. So now I'm going to Dr. Rios, please. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and I'm definitely glad that we put this at the top of our agenda, demonstrating the importance it is to all of us. As usual, I wrote my statement because I wanted to make sure I got all my points across, so bear with me. I first want to revisit the definition I used last time regarding equity as it relates to an educational entity. Equity in education requires putting systems in place to ensure that every child has an equal chance to success. In preparation for this meeting, I asked the district to provide data on achievement, and we were provided data for the past 5 years. The information was presented by ethnicity or special group, and we were given graphs for both English and math achievement. Here in the graphs, we can see that we have seen an improvement in ELA and English for most all groups, and that some groups are doing great. You know, our Asian students are at close to 90% meeting or exceeding standards. Students designated as white are also at 70% meeting or exceeding standard, and that is something to absolutely celebrate. However, not all students are doing great, and there is a clear gap in achievement. 2 of those groups are special education students and our English learners. In 2014-2015, about 27% of those students met or exceeded standards, and 5 years later, 30%, so an increase of about 3% met or exceeded standard. This means that about 3 out of every 10 students in these groups are meeting standards. In an elementary class, that would be out of 20, only 6, but 14 would not. To me, that is alarming. And if you're a parent of an English learner or special education student, again, alarming. I will remind our board that being an English learner is not a deficit. It's actually an asset. Many of us, myself included, are bilingual. And one of our best performing schools, Lille, has the majority of students classified as English learners, or at least that was true when my daughter attended there. Other groups that show concerning data are Latino students and Pacific Islander students. They demonstrated limited improvement. In 2014, they were at 49%, meeting or exceeding standards, and by 5 years later, this number had improved to 52%. Now, as a parent of a Latino student myself, I find this highly concerning. This data tells me that my child has a 50% chance of meeting standards. This is concerning to me as a parent, but more importantly, as a board member. And I don't mean this because I am Latina, but because like all of us, I represent a district where half of the majority of our students who are Latino are meeting standards. Each one of us represents these students. Data is not much better for African-American students. In 2014-2015, the same, about 50% of students met or exceeded standards. And by 2018-2019, that number had gone up to 56%. And this is for English language arts. The number when you look at math, very concerning. So what this proves is a clear gap in achievement. I know that we all believe that all students can learn. We want all our students to be contributing members of our society. And in order to do that, they will all need to read, write, and do math well, regardless of what they will do after high school. We have to do better. Our efforts have yielded success, but it has been limited. And this pandemic will likely exacerbate those gaps. We can do better through this equity officer, but we have to get this position right. I would also like to remind our board members and our community that we have adopted an equity policy. And this equity policy requires efforts for our entire district to attain equity. This position would focus on student achievement. We cannot put the entire scope of attaining equity on one person. This is a charge for every department at every school, including us as board member. This job should take one charge, and that is that all students succeed and at evaluating the practices and policies that are hindering or promoting this. So for this reason, I do have a few changes that I'd like to have our board consider. I will again request that the bullet items 3 and 4 that have to do with being a compliance officer be removed. That items 10 and 11 bullet points, the one that relates to HR, again, we have an HR that I think can handle that. And again, we've given them the charge of improving diversity, because we know that teachers who represent our students, who mirror our students, tons of research support that students tend to do better. And of course, the 11, the demographic study. I do not think this should be put on the equity officer. I have a few more recommendations. Add to the duties and responsibilities. You know, again, looking at our equity policy, this position should align to that. And so conducting program evaluations that focus on equity and address the academic outcomes and performance of all students, which is item 9 on this equity policy, should be included. And I would like to change the title of equity officer to chief equity officer, because we know that we need someone who is well-versed in working at the school district and that it is above the principal or even a director. Right now, the pay scale would call for, I believe, is at the pay scale of an assistant principal. No principal is going to want to take a pay cut. No director is going to want to take a pay cut, which is what we're looking for, something above this to do this job well. And, you know, money should not be an issue. I remind the board that we have $18 million in our LCAP budget to address needs of students such as that would fall in this category. And the last thing, I would like to request that the qualifications include DEI, which would be that this person that is hired have a background in diversity, equity, and inclusion experience. And again, it's going to be tough to find that unless you're looking at someone at above a director level. That is all. Thank you.
Dr. Abaraka.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate being recognized. So there are points, and I don't have to repeat the data or the statistics. Dr. Rios did that quite eloquently for us. So it's obvious that, you know, the data doesn't lie. I wanted to say I agree with her on dropping the demographic study. I also agree that we should get somebody who has extensive experience, whether they were private sector, public sector. Based on the qualifications, they have to have experience in the public sector and education specifically, which is good, credentials, admin credentials, et cetera. However, with the dropping district Title IX compliance and Title VI, or HR, I feel like you're removing teeth and you're not giving that particular equity officer the influence that they deserve, especially if they have the ability to directly influence HR with hiring practices and to make sure that we are hiring, you know, with in line with our vision and our equity policy. Not only that, but I also wanted to ask or bring up the fact that if we're hiring somebody of this caliber, regardless of their title, I think just being an officer, chief equity officer, whatever you want to name them, it has to come with a commensurate salary. And so my understanding is, as the Title IX compliance officer for both students and employees, we are able then to use those Title IX funds to pay for the position. And while we do have $18 million in the LCAP does fluctuate from year to year, as we've learned over the years. I'd rather make sure that we lock in that kind of funding year after year to make sure that this is a permanent position and that they have the authority necessary to be able to carry this out. Now, if anything that I said was wrong or incorrect, I'd ask Dr. Sue or Dr. Zitlo to correct me. I do, for the last bullet point, in coordination with academic services, there's 1, 2, 3 bullet points. I think given that this is to be we're trying to solve a pervasive problem, we're trying to be proactive and offering a pervasive solution. We want to use those economies of scale, and that's our curriculum. That's going to be our students. That's going to be the support that we offer our teachers and our administrators. And I absolutely think that there should be that emphasis with academic services to make sure that this is reaching as many folks as possible, and that obviously this person who has to have a background in education can take advantage of that and use our economies of scale. So, I think we should, again, drop the demographic study, make sure that the person is qualified, obviously has that experience, and that we pay them, accordingly. I agree with Dr. Rios. You're not going to get somebody on an AP assistant principal salary, to either from within want to promote up, or from without want to make the move here to our district. And that's all I have, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one will be Dr. Eugenio.
Thank you, Madam President. I understand the salary range 37 for the equity officer is 10,150, starting at 10,150 per month to 11,558 per month. How did you come up with this salary range?
So when we work through a new position and what we're looking to do, looking who they'll be working with and how that will function, we put them in a commensurate based on value, but based on also what we can afford to do. So for example, there are districts with a higher number of students that meet the qualifications, say for Title I or free and reduced lunch. And because of their numbers and their population, they would have greater funds to be able to do a position at a higher level. Other districts much larger than us, they out of necessity have to separate all of their positions into multiple positions. So as we looked at our needs and our district and how we are structured, we look to put them at a supervisor level within the district, working with our groups and our teams to be in that collaborative vein to work with our different programs and departments. So that's how we came to the place where it would be at that supervisor level.
Thank you, Dr. Zitla. One more question. How do you evaluate the effectiveness of this new position?
So the evaluation would be something that would be working both as an administrator through the normal channels of their personal evaluation and the work they're doing. We'd be looking at the work that's happening within the district, but also there would be pieces coming out of the committee that the board has established, looking at the different priorities that has been set by the new equity policy and the work that that committee will be doing together under the leadership of this person. That would then be part of the conversation. So the things that were being worked on in that global perspective would become part of the employee's evaluation.
Thank you so much. That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next one will be Board Member Mr. Beach, then Vice President Ms. Su, and then following with the clerk, Mr. G. Go ahead, Mr. Beach.
Thank you, Madam President. In preparation for this meeting, I spoke with several friends of different ethnicities in different districts, got their input. One is an administrator in Torrance, and others are teachers in different areas. I also looked at the relationship between student and teacher, and I found that students do significantly better if they have 3 or more teachers of the same race. So that kind of echoes what Kirat was saying earlier, and it does tremendous strides for them emotionally and academically. And I do think it's something that this equity officer position should look at. I don't know whether that would entail offering voluntary transfers or when we hire new teachers, offering them a school where they could be of the most benefit to students that are of the same race as them, because studies show it drastically helps. As far as all of the bullet points, the duties and responsibilities and the names, I was fine with everything that staff put together with the exception of bullet point number 10. And I merely want to only make this recommendation to limit the district as far as liability. So I suggested at the last meeting changing the word reduce to address. That simply could fix it, or changing that whole sentence to in coordination with human resources, assist with the recruitment of a diverse pool of job applicants and help ensure fairness in hiring practices. So I think the word reduce kind of sets a quota and could set us up for liability. I do still think it needs to be addressed. So if the board concurs, we can maybe make a change to that, or it may be voted on to remove that. So I'm curious to hear from my other colleagues. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. That will be next one, Vice President Ms. Zhu.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So Dr. Zidlow, I have a few questions for you. Thank you for putting this together. It's pretty detailed and very expensive, and it sounds like it's a lot of work. The job description, it's a lot of work, but looking at the qualification, this person has to have the teaching credential, administrative credential, and master degree. And it seems like the qualification has to be someone who's like more than a principal and who have experience working as a principal. And what was the pay scale? Can you go over the pay scale?
Sure. So I'll start with the qualifications. As you're working in this type of a position, you will be collaborating with and working with principals, with departments, with programs. So we are wanting to find someone that has had experience in that way. So the conversations and the ideas that are happening around how to lead a staff, how to move a school community into changing practices and procedures, changing the systems that exist would be done in a collaborative way and with someone who has had some experience doing those things. In regard to determining the salary, again, we were looking at the type of work we're asking them to do, the collaboration they would have within our system. Supervisors are at the district level and they work in coordination with principals, and that is things that happen now by other supervisors in the district and how they function. And so that's how we chose the level and the spot for this position.
So the salary amount would be at 37,000.
So the starting salary for this person at step one would be the 11-month position would be $111,643.20, and the ending yearly salary would be $127,129.
Okay, that sounds much strong and appealing, because I don't know where I heard the 37,000.
So I think sometimes when you look at our charts that do our salary schedule, it gives you a monthly amount. It doesn't give you a total.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very clear, because that's pretty competitive, because when I read the qualification, it sounded like someone who's more than just a experienced principal. So it has to be something that's competitive to the principal's position. So that sounds much stronger, because I really appreciate the fact that this person has to have a previous work experience as a site administrator in moving a school out of low performance status. And I know that Dr. Rios addressed a very important point, and it sounds like those bases are covered. So that's very reassuring. And another question I have is, for the closing the gap, and I know that as Dr. Yoga mentioned also, I think it is very important to continue to close the gap with having this equity officer, to put that as a priority to help and work with schools and students who are in that category. And we do have the funds to help these students. I know that our district have worked on this in the past, like closing the gap. And I know that when I first came on board, closing the gap was a top priority. Everybody mentioned it here and there. And I know that over the years, we have come very close to closing the gap, and then this pandemic happened. So with the 18 million that we have, how is that used, just generally? For the local, I know it's a pretty general question, but that's used.
So our LCAP funds?
Yes.
As a whole? Okay, so let me hit a few things for you. It dawned on me that probably the 37 you heard is that it's at range 37 for the position. In this case, how we use our LCAP funds is varied. Typically, and Dr. Mayfield is the one who usually reviews all of this with you all. where we have a listing of all of the things we're doing with those funds. So I don't have a list of it with me this evening, and I don't know if Dr. Mayfield has them off the top of her head. But it includes multiple things and a myriad of services that we provide to our students throughout different schools and in working with our different populations of students.
Okay, well, I feel that, I mean, with the duties and responsibility that is mentioned in this job description, compliance officer, I mean, especially I am very, very, impressed with how they have to collaborate with the community, students, families, and employees. I think that's very important. And working with the principals, I think is very important. And one thing I like to see is action and solution. Can this equity officer also provide action and solution to all the problems that we always mention about closing the gap, providing that extra support to the students in terms of like the Saturday schools that we used to have, right? The Saturday schools providing additional, tutoring and the SAT prep program at like our teacher high with a different, I don't know exactly the extra funds that comes in. So all those solutions, I would like to see this equity officer to really provide those solutions, to real solutions to our students who are in need. So I am pretty satisfied with all these points that's job descriptions and the duties and the requirements. It might be a little bit too much and overwhelming, it seems like, but I'm sure that you guys will work out the details. So thank you very much. That is all, Madam President, for me.
Yeah. Clerk, Mr. Nishii.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So I'd like to start off with that I agree with parts of every single board member's statement on this particular issue, starting with Dr. Rios' statement regarding conducting demographics and enrollment research. I've looked at all the other, not all, but I've looked at several other positions in other areas, and they don't usually have the equity officer conducting the research. They can have them analyzing the research, but it is a special skill to have them do the demographics. In fact, we hired somebody to do that. So that might be a skill set that you'd be hard pressed to get and be a principal and be a teacher and have all these other things. So that might be a much higher cost individual. So if we could strike that particular bullet point, I would be appreciative. I've also saw Dr. Apodaca's comments regarding Title IX compliance officer, and that appears to be standard in several of them. I saw this in Portland Community College, the CEC group, and Central City Concern, and the Orange.
Let me see. I want to remind you, can you please raise your voice a little bit?
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
So the various different school districts, I've seen that they do have Title IX compliance as one of their job duties. But I'd also like to find out, can we have in the part of the job description that they would report to us on a quarterly basis? Similar to our communications officer, I'd like to have some metrics as to what they are actually doing. And I don't think it'd be too much of a burden to get a quarterly report. The amendment by Board Member Beach, I also agree with in terms of addressing a change in language so that we don't have the liability. I trust that we probably haven't talked to an attorney regarding that particular section, but I understand that we have limited resources as well. Can we address the issue regarding the pay? Now, I'm not one to normally argue an increase in pay. I understand that this individual is going to work as a team with all, they're not going to be working by themselves in a vacuum. They're going to be coordinating a bunch of people in this kind of activity. But if they're going to be a principal for 3 years, it says preferably a principal, how are we going to actually attract a principal earning principal pay with an AP level pay? Are we going to pay them at the top of the range to start with, or how is that going to work in terms of recruitment? Because I don't see a principal wanting to take a pay cut.
So their pay space, it would depend on their past experience and where they are, if they're within our organization already or coming in fresh. But that is something that usually happens at the beginning of employment, and employees that are coming in as administrators usually communicate and express their experience so that we can place them appropriately based on their past experience.
So, for example, we have principals, and what level are they at currently?
So our elementary principals and middle school principals are at range 40. And then our high school principals are above that. Typically, we group our employees based on their work they're doing within their context. So whether it's at a site or then it's within the context of the district as a supervisor, that is one of the levels that we have.
And again, I'm not advocating a huge increase, but why would a principal, an elementary school, so we're asking for 3 years of experience, and let's assume that it's an elementary school principal, why would he take a pay cut would he be taking a pay cut to take this position, he or she?
That would depend on the person. I don't know.
I mean, people don't like to take less money, right?
So it sometimes it depends. It depends on what they're looking to do and wanting to do. So there are times when that is something that happens in education, in a transition.
So did you study other positions, and was the pay rate same amount, or how did you actually arrive?
It really varied depending on the district. Other districts really do different things, but it is comparable to other districts that are doing that around us, that are similar in their structure to us and size.
Like which district?
Goodness. So I have a whole list of districts that we looked at. I apologize. I don't have that listing right here. Let me pull up some of the districts that we looked at. I apologize.
Okay, I guess
Sorry.
the issue is that right now, sitting here, I don't know whether the pay is appropriate. I do rely on the experts to advise me, but common sense kind of tells me that if you've been a principal for 3 years, let's say the job is really easy, still, it can't be too easy. It's going to be coordinating with a bunch of other principals, and you're going to be paid less than those other principals. Why would they? I don't understand why they would do it. So I would, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would advocate a slight increase, but I don't even know what that would be.
Agreed.
So what I guess I'm hearing, you would like to see it at that level where the principal is?
Can I?
I'm not sure what I'm hearing.
Something closer to at least an elementary school principal, first level. Go ahead. I yield the floor.
Okay.
Madam President?
You know what? I think Chris, okay, the next one will be Olga. Please condense your question because I really want to control our floor so everybody have a chance to speak. Go ahead, I'm back to the second round now. I will leave my question at the end. So go ahead, Dr. Rios.
Well, I actually wanted to make I actually would like to hear your comments, but I was ready to make a motion and say, to give, again, I really want us to get this right. We have an amazing opportunity to really do something that's going to have a meaningful change for us and for our students. And so I was going to motion that we send all our recommendations back, after listening to Dr. Apodaca. I agree maybe the compliance officer should stay. I agree with Board Member Beach that maybe item 10 can be removed. But I really do want to see this position higher up. I think it should be at the level of a cabinet member. I really, the level of 30, there's no way the pay has to be re-examined, and maybe the Dr. Zillo can come back with a couple of options for us. But as is, yeah, this is not going to give us what we want, I think.
Dr. Rios, may I make short speech before you put on the floor to vote for that, if you don't mind? Okay, I just want to remind my colleague here, okay, and I absolutely agree with Dr. Apodaca talk about the Title IX and Title VI. We have to remember this is Ms. Zeno is a HR person. Before he present this out, she knows what is a common practice and outside. What is the position at the staff column? Okay, I just want to remind everyone, as a principal, you're trying to compare it to principal. You can't compare it to principal. When you see the principal job description, is not just only oversee the entire school district, the school, but plus they have a staff to look into, the custodian look into, a lot of members under her. That is a heavy duty on principal, cannot compare for this position. Just can't. I want to remind everyone, the people that oversee is way more than that. I agree with the Dr. Apodaca. Absolutely, he was correct, because this job is related to Title IX and Title VI, that they're supposed to be overseer. But you have to remember, overall, this job duty and responsibility is not they sing along by themselves. People assume that just everything is overall on the person. If you look carefully on their things, the couple bulletin towards on the page 37, they are assigned work with the academic. They also assigned to work with the HR people. And that is the thing, the person not sing along. And I want to remind the people that the staff are aware what is the need for their position. My question to you, Dr. Zeno, is, I remember you explained, but I want to put it back on the floor again. Title IX and Title VI, who was the one in charge before, and why you removed it to this title? And can you do that? Who's overseeing that right now? And are they going to work with those people again, or they just got on their own?
So thank you for the question, President Say. So this would consolidate it into one place where people could have a person who is aware of equity and diversity issues, gathering this information and being available to help with discrimination issues. For our district as a whole, we have supervisors in all of our departments who, many of them have left principalships, have taken pay cuts. I will tell you, I did. Because you're looking for a reason to do something that is going to benefit you maybe in the long run of your career, or something that you find of value. So while it seems odd in this case, what we're trying to do is allow a single place for people to be able to be heard if they're feeling that they've been discriminated against. But that doesn't mean they don't work with the other departments. Currently, the coordinators for these compliance pieces are throughout different departments, depending on the topic. And you have to go topic by topic to find out who you're going to talk to. And so in this case, then one compliance person would be available, and then they would work with those programs departments, the school sites, to work through the issue that is being brought forth. So, right now, many of those things happen with our school services, our directors, who are also responsible for many other things. And so this would be an added person to assist with that process, but it's a person that's looking at our system as a whole differently from that equity lens and working collaboratively. Again, they are working with people to support what they're doing. They're not having to lead on their own.
The stat column that you offer 37, It's like pretty much, because I know it's a high range and low range there. It's pretty much common in the local with the total student number and the teacher number that we compare the same. I mean, I always want to say compare apple to apple. You know, we can't compare the salary to the LAUSD because that's quite a big, huge district versus our district. It's kind of middle district. It's pretty much comparable.
Actually, we administratively do pretty well in LA County, and we are definitely even above what LA Unified does. We try and keep it in a range, in a place that is good for keeping our administrators in a place that is representative of who they're responsible for and supervising and the work that they're doing.
For my board colleague, I need to ask you to just clarification. On the floor that we're discussing right now is Dr. Rios. You would like to take the service district title 9 and 6 out, right? So we're going to put on vote for that. Am I right? Okay. Now we also have two items on the floor right now discussed. Clerk Nishi, I pretty much sure that board member Mr. Beach might want to maintain bullet number 10. That one only change one word on reduce. Am I correct, Mr. Beach? Not to remove the whole thing. Bullet 10.
Yeah, I think either changing one word at a minimum or redoing the entire sentence, but I do think it needs to be there to assist with the recruitment of diverse candidates.
So you want them in minimum. Okay. Reduce the word, change the word, reduce. Maintain that bullet there.
That would be one option.
Okay, but we also have our Dr. Apodaca there, like to remove the conduct demographics enrollment research there. Am I correct, Dr. Apodaca?
Yes, Madam President, removing the demographics and also including the, actually specifically with speaking about Title VI, which is EEOC, yeah, I would talk about that. Remove the demographic study, include or augment the previous experience needed, and I think we should be a little more scrutinous of the annual salary. I can't imagine having somebody in this position and not paying them, it is a lot of work. And what I was going to add on to that was if we hire the main person, they can then come in, make an assessment, and then from there build out their team as necessary to fit what they need to do and how they need to do it. But also, a lot of that can be taken care of by collaborating with academic services and with human resources. So yeah, but just the demographic would be my main one to drop it for now.
Dr. Apodaca, am I persuading you about this? I just discussed with staff. They do think there's a need to be there for the position. They're not running our own self. Actually, when we do this study and research, we normally will hire expertise to work with them. Is somebody will leading in that? Am I correct, Dr. Zelo?
I think I need you to repeat your question to make sure I understand.
On the bullet number 11, conduct demographics and enrollment research, Dr. Apodaca, board member Apodaca, would like to remove that. But I think what I was asking you folks before regarding this position, regarding this job description, I was told that usually you will hire expertise to work with this person. Am I right or wrong?
Yes. So I think this is more making sure, I think it fits a little bit with the language Mr. Nishii was talking about, this idea of analyzing and looking at our demographic data. I think that's more from the perspective of who our students are and their demographics, not so much the demographic type study that we would do to figure out how many children will enroll next year and the year after. This was more looking at those demographics of our students. And I think it was really trying to understand who our students are for helping with changing practices and changing how we handle different aspects of how we work with our community.
So as far as I can see on the floor that we have a few motions right here. One is a remove bulletin 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4. Okay, that will be Dr. Rios, her motion. And then, so should we go one by one or what? We'll go to this 3 and 4 first. Would you like to make a statement, Dr. Rios?
Yeah, I will yield on those. I will yield on bullet points 3 and 4.
Okay, so we're, if the board agree, we'll go with the Dr. Rios. Then we go back to board member Ms. Beach on number 10, because it seems like everybody has a different opinion there. And then the last one, it will be the number 11, conduct demographic and enrollment research. Would that be okay? And then each of you guys will make a motion on that. And then we don't need a second, so we just go vote. Am I correct, Dr. Su?
Yes, you are correct, but I would like to have a board member make the motion in terms of the bullet number 10.
Yes.
In regards to HR.
Yeah, that was the whole thing.
Instead of reducing to assist, with the disparity between the diversity.
I agree
So
with you.
moved,
That's why I'm going by
Apodaca.
one at a time. Yes, Dr. Apodaca? Yes?
So moved, Dr. Su mentioned,
Thank
so
you.
moved.
Okay, so do we go Dr. Rios now first? Okay,
I
is
think,
that what we're going to do?
Madam President, I think there's
Yes.
a motion.
I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, Sue, you have, okay, let me go back to
Question?
here. We have Sue
Yeah.
make comment, and we also have, who else has a comment about salary and title? Okay, Sue, go ahead first. Go ahead, Vice President.
You have to vote on 10.
Yeah, so a lot of these questions and discussions are clarifying a lot of, it's clarifying more understanding of this position. But for the item 10, item 11, regarding the demographics and enrollment research, Dr. Zillow's explanation, am I understanding this clearly that this wording, it sounds like this equity officer would have to do the conducting the demographics and the enrollment research, but you just shared that it's just for them to understand the demographics in order to make a better decision of how to serve the students. Is this correct? Am I correct or wrong?
Yes, and I think by us changing that front word from conduct, that would clarify. I think when we were putting this together, we weren't thinking about the demographic studies we do to determine the number of children coming into our district. That wasn't the thinking. So this would be more an analysis of our data.
How about analyze and understand our district demographics and enrollment research? Sorry.
So
this sounds pretty good.
I would not expect this equity officer to do all that work, but to use the data to understand what's the percentage of Asians, African American, Latinos, and so forth, right? And the family economic background. So
Yes.
the equity officer would use the data that's provided to him or her, correct?
Yes.
So I would definitely change the wordings.
Okay.
But the need for this equity officer to know the demographic and enrollment, I think is very important. Yeah.
President,
That is all.
President, say we have a motion on the floor.
Yes. Let's go ahead. The motion, Dr. Rios, go ahead.
No, I think Dr. Apodaca had a motion on the floor.
It's Dr. Apodaca's motion.
I'm sorry, and now so many people are talking now. Mayor Susan, Dr. Susie is your clerk. Can you rephrase it for me, please?
Dr. Apodaca?
Yeah, sorry. I was really enjoying the discussion, so I just wanted to let it keep going. But
Go ahead, Dr.
so I believe the motion that the motion that I would make on the recommendation of Dr. Su was to change that item from ensure recruitment processes that reduce the disparity. I would just say assist human resources, but get rid of that word reduce. Basically it would be assist or collaborate with human resources to I would say, I don't want to say solve, but to address the disparity between the diversity in our student population and our faculty and staff. I think that would be a good one. So that's my motion.
That's motion. Okay, so we don't need a second. So I'm asking for a roll call. Daniel, are you there?
Yes. Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishii,
Yes.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
Mrs. Say,
Yes, and thank you.
Mrs. Yu, Mrs. Yu,
Yes.
Good, thank you.
motion passes 7-0.
Okay.
So we will change that to address rather than reduce.
Okay, now I do want the board to entertain a motion to elevate the position beyond what it currently is to that of a cabinet member so that they can report to the board. As some other board members, I think we all agree that level 37 is probably not the caliber of person we want. So to elevate it to that of a cabinet member and to have that person report to us, because as you can see, no director comes to report to us, no supervisor reports to us. Yeah, that's it.
So you want them to report it directly to the board?
Well, it would be to the superintendent, of course, but also to have quarterly reports. I believe it was Dr. Apodaca mentioned, and I, mentioned this last time. I do want them to. I would like for them to report to us. I mean, if this is important to us, then we want to know how we're doing. I mean, look at this data. I think was eye-opening. I think reviewing this kind of data regularly will lead us in the right direction.
Go ahead. We have some questions in here. Since you made a motion
Question?
already, we're going to open to the board for any questions on that. Go ahead, VP Ms. Yu.
My question is, elevating this position to the, cabinet level is a bit jump at this point, because this is a totally new position. And for this equity officer, whoever it would be, would have to, I think, really what Dr. Zillow shared, I think really hit home, is a person who have a conviction, but who, I think that's very important for the person to have the conviction to pioneer this whole committee, this whole department. And I think, I would recommend to give this equity officer a couple of years to build it up to that level, to be at that cabinet level, to build a team and fine tune the job description and the work that needs to be done. So starting at the cabinet level, I think is a bit too much. I would like to have that room open to build and grow to that level, but not from the very beginning, because it's a whole new department, whole new position that needs to be worked on. So, I mean, I'm open to it, but not like jump to that level.
Just to clarify, I believe board member Nishii did indicate that he would like to see quarterly reports, and that's something that we can build in. We do have different supervisors and people that participate and do reports at various times during our board meetings, depending on programs and things that they're working on. So that is something that could be added here as something they would do quarterly.
Thank you. We have two more board members on the floor who would like to ask some comments or questions. I have Dr. Apodaca first, and second will be board member Mr. Beach. Go ahead, Dr. Apodaca.
Thank you, Madam President. And I want to step back a little bit and remind everyone where this comes from, right? And how we got to the point where we're actually exploring an equity officer. And, if we're going to do this, I agree with Dr. Rios, we have to do it right from the get-go. In my experience in the private sector, you hire someone for a position like this, you pay them what they're worth, and then you allow them with supervision to do what they need to do to build it out. And I think that in this case, it's not just the prerogative of this board, but it's a prerogative of the people. We have an enormous amount of support obviously, to have this position. And I think that in response to our constituents, the people who elect us, right? I think that we owe it to them. And I mean, if they come up and they say, no, we don't think that that's necessary, we would be okay with quarterly reports from, you know, a supervisor level district administrator, then okay. I'm responding and I'm supporting Dr. Rios's motion because I don't think that that's what the public wants. I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that the public wants to see this as a position of prominence within the district that is autonomous for the most part and can actually really restructure, you know, equity in our district, introduce it in a way that it is as common. Well, we have an equity officer who, you know, has the ability, the authority to implement these things. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one will be board member Mr. Beach, and then following Mr. Beach will be clerk Mr. Nishii. Go ahead, Mr. Beach.
Thank you, Madam President. I see that the superintendent and staff recommended approval of this qualification, and I wanted to ask Ms. Zitlow if, when she researched other districts, was this 37 category of pay equivalent to others? Was it higher? Was it lower? How did we fall in comparison to other districts? And then I'd also like to ask Dr. Sue how she feels about us reclassifying this position.
So when we looked at other districts and sizes, we looked at where they had their person working for their district and their structure. We looked at what they were paying and looked to do something comparable as it fits within our structure and in our district. You know, to compare what we're doing to, say, a Long Beach Unified, that's not realistic in terms of their size and scope of what they do. So we took what they were doing with their employees and where they had these people in terms of their space and place in the organization. And then we built something for ABC that is comparable within our structure and in our system.
I want to remind the board that right now, our board member, Dr. Rios, has a motion on the floor regarding who oversee and would report it to. So please focus on that. Go ahead. Are you finished, Mr. Beach?
Does Dr. Sue have anything to add?
Absolutely. First of all, if we advance the level of a supervisor, we have to create a different position for the person as an equity officer. The next level would be a director level. So we have to be very considerate of the cost that it will contain at the director level.
And then cabinet level would be higher than that even.
No, we have directors in our cabinet.
Okay. And what would the pay range be for that? Is it above 40? If Ms. Zitlow knows? Putting you on the spot, sorry.
Dr. Zillow, you have to take off you're on mute now. Please unmute you, Dr. Zillow.
I just needed a minute to go and look. Yes, the director level moves into a significantly higher range of 45.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next one is clerk, Mr. Nishii.
So what Dr. Sue is saying is that if it's at the cabinet level or director level, this is not the job description that's before us right now.
That is correct. We normally do not have supervisors in the cabinet meetings.
What is the difference between in terms of pay, between 37 and 40?
And 40?
Correct.
So
okay.
I'm
the principal
gonna,
level, basically.
I'm gonna do quick math, but sometimes Tuan is better at quick math than I am.
Yeah, I think this will be best to have Tuan
So-
come in too.
I can answer that.
Thank you, Tuan.
Yeah. So let me, maybe I'll have a pencil. So range 37 as proposed, the monthly start at 10,150 and end at 11,558. Range 40, The monthly starts at 10,698 and ends at 12,178. And that's equal to elementary and middle school principal. Range 45, which is at director level, begins at $11,602 and it ends at $13,214.
But the problem is that if we pay them at that level, that's not the job description that we had here today before us. And I think there would be a legal problem with paying that amount and having the duties that are as described here right now. So I'd like to make a friendly amendment to Dr. Rios's motion to increase it to the principal level, but not necessarily the director level, in order to, and I understand that Dr. Zitlo is an expert and Dr. Mary Sue is an expert, but this would emphasize that you shouldn't have to take a pay cut to do what you love. And I understand that some people have taken pay cuts from principal levels to do what they love. But the difference in cost is about $500 a month. I don't think it would be illegal for us to pay them at a principal level. And so I would like to make that friendly amendment if Dr. Rios would permit.
So I'm a little troubled that we're getting caught up in money. Again, the money came up because, you know, we're talking about the caliber of person that we want to attract to this position and the experience that we hope they bring with them. And it also, you know, keep in mind that this position is going to be a person that's going to evaluate our practices. They have to have the autonomy and the discretion to look at HR and say, hey, maybe the way we're doing things in our hiring can be improved. Talking to our principals and say, hey, maybe in order to get these particular group of students to do better, you need to provide this kind of professional development and instruction. So that's what this position is about. It's not necessarily getting caught up in the level of salary. It's what impact are they going to have in our district and what experience are they going to bring with us. A principal job, I'm a principal. Yes, we do a lot, but we need someone that's going to run. I mean, this person is going to have to talk to every principal and do things differently than, I mean, again, the data in the past 5 years proves that we're not achieving the success we want. And this was the job of academic services. This was the job of HR. And this was ultimately the job of our superintendent. The fact that we're still struggling tells me that we need to invest. And thank goodness we have that $18 million fund to do so. So I don't understand why we're getting caught up in money. Yes, I'm getting passionate again. Take a deep breath.
Point of order, Madam President.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Abaraka.
Dr. Rios, do you accept or reject the friendly amendment from Mr. Nishi?
So the friendly amendment would be that we just raise it to the level of principal, that still maintains the position at a supervisor level. I'd like this position to be at a cabinet level, so I guess not.
So our motions were made it clear by Dr. Rios. And so I'm going to ask Daniel to do roll call.
I'm sorry, Madam President, I have a friendly amendment. Sorry, I was waiting to be called.
Okay.
Is there anybody else or can I be recognized?
Should we go on with the vote first and then what is better practice, Dr. Sue?
Point of order, I'm offering a friendly amendment to Dr. Rios, the motion on the floor.
Yeah, Abaraka already made a friendly amendment already. So we're gonna go to the vote right now.
Oh no, I haven't made the amendment, Madam President.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm telling the VP, unless you have some more questions in there. If none, then I'm gonna put on the vote. Okay?
Madam President, I want to make the amendment before we have the vote.
Okay.
The amendment to Olga, I'm sorry, friendly amendment to Olga's motion. I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's what I heard.
Okay, so I'd like to make the friendly amendment. Okay, for this position, if the way that it's written is not accurate, to continue this, to upgrade it to a cabinet level position. That's my amendment to Dr. Rios's motion.
So you're up to the captain position.
Correct. Or director level or higher.
And I also have on the floor right now here, I know, I got your friendly amendment, also a board member, Clerk Nishi also said he could not hear his friendly amendment reject.
Let me,
yes, go ahead, Dr. Su.
President say, I can include the equity officer, chief equity officer in the cabinet meetings.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what range, because we include, for example, our communication officer every week, twice a week in our cabinet meetings.
And I too agree with that, because Dr. Apodaca and Dr. Rio said very clearly, this is the issue, and we want to have a direct conversation rather than just always give a report to the administrator. We should be also get involved too. So, and since Dr. Su agreed adding this chief equity officer to the cabinet meeting, do we still gonna put in vote that, or just go ahead, change the words on the job description? Responsibility.
Dr. Rios, it's her motion.
Dr. Rios, it's your motion.
Yes, so just to clarify, it's going to elevate the position so that we attract a higher caliber person, and not to say that APs don't do a fabulous job, but I have my doctorate and I have a lot of, anyway, yes, let me not get it cut. Yes, I like Dr. Su's offer. I also accept board member Apodaca's motion, so I don't know if the two are kind of in the same.
To me, it's pretty much the same. Am I right, Dr. Apodaca?
So I guess this is just going to be the minutia then. So my motion is, my friendly amendment to her motion is to rework this thing, to elevate it, redo the description to elevate it to a cabinet position. I would not include, I would expect that if they were elevated to a cabinet position, they would be at all of the cabinet meetings. I think it's very important that this be a cabinet position. And so, no, I'm not going to include just having them be at the meeting. They should have the tenure of a cabinet member. That's my motion, or my amendment to the motion.
Am I clear about this motion, friendly amendment motion? If it's clear, then we're going to the vote.
But wait.
Dr. Olga has to approve or deny it.
Yes, I accept. I reject the friendly amendment made by board member Nishi, and I accept the friendly amendment made by Dr. Apodaca.
Thank you, Dr. Rios. Okay. Yeah, and they're much clearer now. Yeah. Yes?
So I have a question.
Okay.
With the amendment to Dr. Apodaca's amendment, does that mean the pay is also at the
cabinet level?
Cabinet level.
Yeah, that's what he meant.
That's what she both. Actually, back to the real. That's really the true amendment that she like to propose.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So my friendly amendment is independent of the salary. I leave that to Dr. Rios if she would want to go for level 40 or 45. It's completely up to her motion, but I think that it should have the stature of a cabinet position.
That's
point of order.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Yu. Yeah, that's not what I heard.
Point of order.
Yes, VP, you.
Yes, I just want to clarify that we just heard from Dr. Su and Dr. Zidlow that once it goes to the cabinet level, we have to change everything, right? Because the pay scale and the job description is all different.
No.
I'm kind of confused.
No,
it will be the same, except the reporting direct to who? It will be directly down to the cabinet.
That's correct. That's correct, President Say.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so can I clarify one more time that this friendly amendment does not mean that this equity officer will be at the level of the cabinet, director's level. It's not. The pay scale is not. We're going to keep the pay scale at the same level. Okay, it's just that the equity officer will be attending the cabinet meeting and report to the board, all that, everything's there, but not the pay scale. Is that correct?
No.
Am I clear?
No, the position will be commensurate of a cabinet member.
With the pay scale is what you guys meant?
Yes.
Dr. Rios and Chris?
Yes.
Chris? I think
pay
like, we
will
need
be
to be clear
commensurate.
about that.
I think there are two motions on the floor now.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Dr. Apodaca has one that does not relate to the salary. And then I know Dr. Rios has one that is related to the salary.
Yeah.
We should take a motion, at least one of the motions right now.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Two
Dr.
different
Apodaca's
motions
was
on the
a
floor.
friendly amendment to my
Hold
motion.
on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Dr. Rios. You're too fast. Go ahead, Dr. Rios.
Well, I was saying that, no, I think what Dr. Apodaca's motion was a friendly amendment to mine, which I accepted. So at this point, we just have to call the question. And the motion was to elevate it to a cabinet position with commensurate salary. Whatever Dr. Sue deems that's appropriate.
Well, before we vote, can we know the title and the exact salary,
Yes, please.
Good point.
please?
Dr. Zidlo, can you give us an idea of what salary range that is?
So that was the salary ranges that that Mr. Wen was discussing for monthly salary beginning at 11,602, ending at 13,214, and that's the director level, or looking at level 40, which was also discussed, the 10,698 to the 12,178, which is at level 40.
What was level 45? I remember level 45.
Director, that was the first one I shared.
Okay, I would go with the level 45 director at a minimum.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not president anymore. Sorry.
Madam President.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Dr. Apodaca.
Thank you. Well, let's look at the nuts and bolts. We hear level 37 right now, level 45. It seems like a big jump. So plus or minus from the lowest amount, from one low amount to the next low amount, from the highest amount to the next highest amount. What is the plus or minus difference? We're talking what, $300 to $500 per month to go from a 40 to a 45?
No, we're talking $1,500 at the low end to
Wow.
Almost 1,800 if I'm doing my fast math correctly.
So what's the lowest? Okay, so the lowest, apples to apples, lowest to lowest, we're looking at 1,500 between 40 and 45 a month.
But between where it is at range 37 and then that director.
Oh, okay, we're at
45.
37 now. I thought we had abandoned 37 already. I thought we were going 40 to 45. Okay, I just wanted a clarification on that. Thank you.
There are two motions on the floor. Are we going to vote? There's two motions on the floor, right? Correct? So we got to vote on that first before we go on to other discussion. Is that correct, Dr. Sue?
Now, one of the big motions talking about the salary. If you're going to move to cabinet, move up to cabinet level, then you need to change the title. That's what other board member asking for. And board member Mr. Beach has mentioned
Madam
about.
Madam President, I wanted to ask Dr. Sue because we need to go on with the meeting and the motion on the floor.
If
Point of order, Madam President.
Go ahead, Mr. Beach.
There's only one motion on the floor. Chris made an amendment to her motion, so it's just one motion that we're talking about.
Okay.
It's to go up to cabinet level, which is 45, and a director title, if I'm understanding both of them correctly.
Correct. Okay, I want to make that clear. You want to go up to step 45, step column 45? I thought you said in between 40 to 45, Dr. Apodaca. Your amendment to amendment.
No, my friendly amendment is independent of the pay scale. I trust staff to go back and rework this to fit, where it should be. It's independent of that. My motion or my amendment to the motion was to have it be a cabinet level position.
Okay. Yes, board member Mr. Ish, and you, Vice President, you.
Yes, Dr. Sue, can you clarify the motion for us, please? Because it's a little bit confusing with Dr. Olga and Chris. Yeah.
I think Dr. Apodaca's friendly motion was independent of the salary schedule. Right now, he is looking at the motion to the friendly amendment is independent of the salary range. He will trust us to work out the range later.
Okay, so the staff will decide. Okay.
But Dr. Olga did not accept it. She wants to stick to the motion did not, Dr. Olga is not agreeing to Chris's friendly amendment. So we need to know what we're voting for.
She did.
Yeah, I didn't say I didn't disagree. Again, yeah, I mean, I think that the direction that I hope that our staff is hearing is that we hope it to be at least at a level 45. So yes, we can move forward with the motion.
No, but that's the thing. Dr. Apodaca is independent of the salary. He is saying that he's 40 to 45, depending upon what. So it's up to you, Dr. Rios, to accept his amendment.
Yeah.
If you say no, then it's definitely going to be 45.
Yes.
If you say yes, it can be between 40 and 45. So it's up to you.
I apologize.
Again, I mean, we can put our staff on the spot and ask them what our cabinet members are making. If they feel like their experience in the level of work that they do, which is not any less than we're going to ask of this equity officer, is appropriate at that level, then fine. I think that that's.
If
I don't want to get caught up. We can spend an hour here talking about it.
Go ahead. I'm going to give a final word to our HR.
If
Dr.
I can
Dillon.
just speak to that for a minute, I do think we do need to think about the fact that we have many supervisors working throughout our district. They are working at that range 37. They are doing excellent work. This could create a space where we have given someone similar work, similar type duties, and we are compensating them significantly different. And so that could raise other issues in terms of our overall structures within the district and with our supervisor level employees. We're wanting to make sure that they're treated well, but just to be clear, every single supervisor in our district that is a certificated supervisor prior to coming to the district and prior to the change in salary they experienced were all principals at school sites, whether it was at an elementary school, a middle school, or in my case, a high school. Sometimes it's about new opportunities to grow professionally. And this definitely would be an opportunity to grow and do some things professionally that enhance your ability as an administrator to take on new challenges and opportunities in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Zillo. That was very, very clear.
Yeah. And I wish my colleagues respect our HR person's suggestion.
Yes.
So I think actually Dr. Su and Dr. Apodaca has mentioned about is kind of independent led staff to make the fair judgment on the salary. I think we should give them to make that and give back report to us. Okay, will that be okay? Okay, so I'm going to have the board to vote right now. Okay, if you agree. And Dr. Rios, would you like to reinstate your statement now to put on the motion to vote?
No, you can call the question.
Okay, okay. So
can Dr. Apodaca repeat the friendly amendment motion one more time to clarify to all the board members? Appreciate that.
To elevate the position to a cabinet, I move to elevate the position to a cabinet level position and to then have the staff rework what was here in this proposal so that way it mirrors a cabinet level position. So we aren't overpaying somebody, we are paying them commensurate with the workload that we give them.
Okay, thank you. Danielle, can you do a roll call? Danielle, can you do a roll call for me on this one, please?
Dr. Apodaca?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Beach?
No.
Dr. Eugenio?
No.
Mr. Onishi?
It's too vague, so I have to. It has to be a no.
What do you say?
No,
Ms.
it's
Nishi?
too
No.
vague.
Okay.
I don't understand what I'm even voting on actually at this point.
Dr. Rios?
Yes.
Mrs. Say?
No.
Mrs. Yu,
No.
motion
Okay.
fails.
So it's fell
3 to
back to
5.
the, so on this, we back to the, to this agenda, which is the equity officer that has staff had to present to us. Yes, now, back to discussion again, I guess.
Madam President,
Board Member Mr. Beach, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, please.
Okay, go ahead.
There's going to be 4 parts to it, but I'll go very slow. I'd like us to change bullet number 11 to review instead of conduct, so they can just review the demographic study. They don't have to conduct it or make it themselves. I liked Ernie's idea about adding giving a report to the board on a quarterly basis, if we could work that into the duty statement. Also, that they would be in the cabinet meetings with the cabinet. That could be in the duty statement. And I think I'll just keep it at those 3.
Okay. Any other amendment during any other motion in this floor right now? If none,
I'd like to make an amendment, friendly amendment to it as well.
What did you say, Clerk Nishii?
So I would like to amend it to increase the pay so that I understand there's an issue of discrepancy between different people who are on staff, but it should also reflect that we think this is an important position. And I think if we pay them at 37, we're reflecting that we're asking people to take a sacrifice. And I know that other people in our district have taken sacrifices to work at the district to do what they want. But I would like to amend so that the pay is at the 40 level.
So I have.
Will you accept that amendment, Mr. Board Member Beach?
Madam President, I actually had that written down and I will accept that amendment.
So you like to have you change your amendment right now to friendly amendment from Board Member Clerk Nishii. Is that right? Am I clear?
Yes. So we'll have the other 3 things I mentioned and increasing the pay to category 40.
Okay. So I think we also have a board member, Dr. Abdaka on the floor too. Has something too. Dr.
Thank you,
Abdaka?
Madam President. Thank you, Madam President. So if I understand correctly, folks, that the purpose of this position is to go out and actually have the title, the ability, the authority, and the influence to rework our curriculum, our hiring practices, and everything else where we are lacking in equity. Folks need to know that this person has that. They're not going to know that this person is paid at level 40. Level 40 or 45 or 37 is between us as the employer and them as the employee. I don't understand or see how it's different then to not have them at a cabinet level, but pay them between level 40, which may go up to 45, and not give them the authority and the ability to do what we ask them to do. If we're going to pay them at level 40, then I think that we shouldn't have what we have here. What we have here as a job description is level 37, which is why I made the friendly amendment to, if we're going to pay them more, to increase and to rewrite this job description to actually mirror more the will of the board and the will of the people that are obviously asking for this. So I think that giving them a pay increase, but not the influence or the ability and autonomy to exercise it, I think is pointless. I'd rather pay somebody level 40 and give them the ability to earn it than to give them level 40 and they stay with a different job description that's beneath level 40, which is, this is a level 37 job description. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam President.
Yes, Ms. Nishishi.
So, Dr. Abdaka, do you have an amendment to his motion?
The whole thing, but I heard that we've been discussed over and over already. Clerk Nishi, you have Dr. Obadaka has said that the staff to decide independent salary. It's on the floor already, and that staff to handle this, and we trust them. But now you want to increase that. I just don't see any, because I trust the staff, and I believe also Tuan has mentioned this is the salary range for the people, and you have to see, do we have a budget for that? But that we have respect our finance give the report on the salary range. Go ahead, VP.
Madam President, I think we had enough discussion. Can we just go on to vote?
We have two on the floor right now. Actually, we based on the amendment by Board Member Nishi, which want to increase the salary.
Well, Madam President,
Yes.
I'll go ahead and reject Mr. Nishii's amendment so we can just vote on the three changes in language and then we can discuss. pay.
Beautiful. I agree with that. Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes, please.
Move
Can
on.
you restate the statement? We'll go vote. Okay.
So it's changing bullet number 11 to review instead of conduct. It's adding in the duties and responsibilities that they'll do a quarterly report to the board and that they'll attend cabinet meetings.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now, Daniel, please roll call.
Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishi,
Yes.
Dr. Rios, Dr. Rios,
Sorry, no.
Mrs. Say,
Yes.
Mrs. Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Now we're going to vote in information items. This is talking about governor's budget proposal. Once again, I want to remind my colleague, this is just informational for tonight. Go ahead, Mr. Toy.
Wait, we haven't voted on the actual position. That was just on an amendment.
That was on the amendment, Madam President.
Oh, okay.
And
So
I
now we're
believe that
back
we
to,
need to talk about salary as well.
so may I have a motion to approve the new job classification, job description, and range for Chief Equity Officer? Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. So Daniel, can you roll call, please?
I'm sorry, Madam President, I missed, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I missed who made the motion. Who was the second?
Mr. Yu, VP, Ms. Yu made the motion and the second by Dr. Rios.
Thank you.
Daniel?
Dr. Apodaca,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio,
Yes.
Mr. Nishi,
Yes.
Dr. Rios,
Yes.
Mrs. Say,
Yes.
Mrs. Yu. Mrs. Yu.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Whew, thank you. Next one is information item 1.1-1, Governor's Budget Proposal. I want to remind my colleague, this is just informational for tonight. And go ahead, Mr. Nguyen. Tuan?
Thank you, President Say. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So tonight, as an informational item, I will present to the board the governor's budget proposal for the next school year, which is the 21-22 school year, which will begin on July 1st of 2021. So this is a normal annual process legally required by the governor. So by January 15, the governor has to propose a budget for the following year. So this year, and usually, it takes time to go through the legislative process. In May, the governor have a chance to update his proposal, and by June 15, the state legislature will act on his proposal. This year, there's a little bit different in the process that there are two components within his proposal that he has requested the legislature to take immediate action that will impact the current year, although it's a next year proposal. So I'll explain that later in detail, which is the Safe School for All. And also there's an expanded learning grant that he also asked the legislature to take early action, but not immediate action instead of the normal process. So I'll explain that also later. So the state of the state, if you will, the condition of what's going on in Sacramento and the state general fund in terms of their finances. So it has been a very interesting year, like a roller coaster. A year ago, this time in January of 2020, the state was enjoying about a $5 billion surplus. The economy was going well, unemployment rate was low, so they had that at the time. And we all know what happened after that. COVID-19 hit. On March 13, we shut down the schools and pretty much the state. By May of 2020, the state was looking at or dealing with a $54 billion shortfall, which is about a third of their budget. The governor at the time proposed a 10% reduction in school funding. The legislature did not agree with that and they rejected his proposal, but instead provided flat fundings for school districts with a lot of deferrals, meaning that we will get our money later, not in the current year, but we were able to avoid the 10% cut. A few months later, in November of 2020, the economy picked up at a faster pace than what anticipated. So now the state had about a $15 billion budget windfall. So as you can see, it swung drastically from surplus to shortfall now to windfall. Real quickly on the state economy, pre-COVID was at 3.9% unemployment, shot up to 16.4%, and now since then it's been going down to about 8.2%. So we are not obviously back to where we were pre-COVID. 8.2% is high unemployment rate. Just in terms of job creations, since 2015, the state created about 1.6 million jobs. We lost all that in March, plus another 800,000. So since then, we regained about 800,000. But point being is that from June 15, from 2015 to now, all the jobs that was created, we lost that during the COVID pandemic. So we have about 1.6 million jobs to make up. So the unemployment rate and the impact this year or this time is different than the previous recessions. The point here is that it impacts a certain groups of workers, namely the workers that don't have children, the younger workers, the ones that worked in the leisure and hospitality sectors. So the more established and stable workers that would pay higher tax, they're less impacted with COVID-19 than the younger workers that don't make as much as the older workers. So it's very different than before. If you compare this COVID-19 recession to the Great Recession, you can see that it impact a different age group, a different type of workers differently than a normal recessions, if you will. And because of that, it also impact the state tax collection, and that's explained the windfall, because the tax collection is not as bad as anticipated that by the state. What also helping the state with this recession is very different than previous recession is that the median home prices in California are still going up, and it is at all-time high now, as you can see here. So that helps with property tax, and that's helped with state collection. Another thing that helped the state tax collection is capital gain, driven by the stock market. So it's a little bit irrational or exuberant at this point, whatever term you want to use. But normally with the recessions, right, you see a decline in the stock market, not in this recession. So things are operating it very differently this year. This I mentioned about capital gains. Those who have stocks have more capital gains than ever. And that's really helped with the state tax collection because, the top 1% pay in more than 50% of the tax collection at the state level. So that group is doing extremely well with this recession or this pandemic. So this is a 3-year snapshot of state tax collection. We call the big 3 taxes, which is the personal income tax, the PIT, which includes capital gain, sales tax, and corporation tax. And you can see it here, right? It's going up with the recession. When unemployment rate go from 3.9 to 8.2, you don't expect this pattern of tax collection. But as I explained it in the previous slides, it's a different recessions where state tax collections pretty much stabilized and not being impacted as much. So for next year, the state budget, we talk about the top 3 taxes: personal income tax, sales tax, and corporation tax here. In total, the general fund, they are expected to receive or collect about $161.4 billion with a B. And expenditures, education is the biggest piece of the pie, about $60 billion. And then higher education, 17.9. The one single line item at the state level has the largest increases, health and human services at 54.4 billion, because of the pandemic. That kind of makes sense. So they are spending a little bit more than what they take in. So they are deficit spending, but because they have the windfall, that will help them through this. Now, this is the last 2 years and the budget year, right? They having a windfall in the budget year, but the out years are not looking too rosy. Based on the State Department of Finance and the governor budget summary, they are projecting that beginning in 22-23, the state again will begin deficit spending, and then the 2 years after that. One point I mentioned is that, as you remember on the first slide, right, things change so drastically. This is only a projection as of today. In May, this number will change, right? And then the more you go out, the numbers will change also, because you are projecting in the out years. You make a certain assumptions based on today information, and that will change. So I'm just want to point that out, that right now we have a deficit in the out years that may or may not materialize. But this is what the governor is saying at this point. Education funding, if you recall, it hit bottom with the Great Recessions that began in 2008. We get drastic cut from the state. We bottom out in 2011 and 12, and we have been going up ever since. The last few years have been stabilized. It's been increasing, but it's not as much as the previous like 12, 13 or 2014, 15. When you see the term Proposition 98 funding, it just means education funding. Proposition 98 is a proposition that was passed by the people back in the 80s to basically guarantee a minimum level of funding for education, which is about 40% of the state budget. So what exactly is in the governor proposal, and how does that going to impact education and ABC? So the governor proposed $2.2 billion increase for LCFF, or local control funding formula, which is a COLA, or cost of living adjustment, of 3.84%. This is a 2 years combined COLA. Next year COLA is actually only 1.5%. So inflation projected is only about 1.5% for next year. But this year, we had a 2.3% COLA, but we didn't get funded on. So the governor just added 2 years together and proposed a 3.84 COLA. On top of that, and I'm not going to read through this, but many special grants or categorical programs that proposed by the governor. If you recall, we had a lot of block grants before, and Governor Brown folded all that into LCFF and did away with categorical grants. But now they are coming back. There's different grants here for different purposes set by the governor. One of the grants that I want to talk about is this $4.6 billion grant for expanded learning time and academic intervention. And this is one of the grants that the governor asked the legislature to take early action on, meaning approve it before June 15. And this is basically for next year, recognizing that next year, hopefully students can come back, and if they can we have the fund to bring them back earlier and extended the school year, that would be great. So a normal school year, we will have 180 instructional days. This funding will provide for more instructional days, maybe 185, maybe more. Also, more summer school, also more after school intervention. So basically, whatever we need to do to mitigate the learning loss and bring the student back up to speed next year. So that's that. Of course, the focus is on low-income students, English learners, and foster youth. However, the funds can be spent for all students. It's not just restricted for this group. That's a targeted group because, you know, we have seen reports that that group get hurt the most during this pandemic in terms of academics. So therefore, that should be the target. So that is a piece of the proposal. A lot of money, right? $4.6 billion for education statewide. Another proposal, and you have heard about this before, is that the governor requested immediate action, preferably before February 1st. We knew that it didn't happen because today's February 2nd, and the legislature has not acted on this. They are still negotiating this with the governor and have not come to agreement just yet. So this is a proposal that the date has passed, but we act on this, right? So the Safe School for Grants provide funding for school district. He set aside about $2 billion, in which if this were approved, ABC will get about $9 million to open instructions as soon as February 16 for TK to second and special cohorts, and March 15 for third to sixth. Only if the COVID-19 infection rate is at or below 25 cases, right? So at the time I put this together about 2 weeks ago, the rate was at 75.3. Last week, it went down to 48. Today, they just updated this today, and we are at 38.7. So the number that you want to look at is the adjusted case rate for tier assignment. That is the magic number. So it went from 75 to 48 to 38. So almost dropped in half in 2 weeks. So it's going in the right directions. It's still far from 25, and 25 is a proposal. It's a moving target. What the application that we submit, ABC, there are 5 components within that proposal, and we were able to complete all these 5 and submit that to the appropriate agency yesterday. So we did that. So we met the timeline as proposed by the governor. What can the money be spent on? So enhance and expanding COVID testing is one of the requirements. Purchase PPE, personal protective equipment, improving ventilation, additional salaries for teachers and classified staff, and social and mental health support. That's the intent of the money, and it should be spent on these items. Safety is a priority for the governor, and I believe that Dr. Mayfield at the last meeting went over this already, so I will not spend a lot of time here. Just quickly, masks for all students and staff, physical distancing, small and stable groups, washing hands, upgraded ventilation, screening and testing for all staff and students, and prioritize school staff in the distribution of vaccines. So that's what proposed by the governor. How often do we have to test? We have to test for asymptomatic weekly, as long as cases above 14. Remember, we are at 38, so we can't open yet. We can open when it's go below 25, and then we can test every 2 weeks if we go in the red tier. And to remind the board, the County of Los Angeles has never, since this tier system began, they have never gone into the red tier. We have always been into the purple tier. So that was part of the state budget. So I'm going to move beyond the state proposal and move on to federal funds. Last March, the federal government approved CARES funding. I'm going to call it CARES, the CARES Act, Part 1, and that provides funding for school district for learning loss mitigation. We receive about $12 million that we had to spend by December 30th of 2020 that get extended through May. and we had a budget that the board approved back in August, and we are on track to spend all this money. And once we do a final report, we can report back to the board on where exactly the expenditure landed. This was just the budget that was approved by the board. So in December of 2020, the final days of December, the federal government approved CARES Act Part 2. So just in the bigger number, CARES Act Part 1 it was a $2.2 trillion package. Part 2 is $900 billion. And in the CARES Act Part 2, California will receive about $6.8 billion. And we are expecting to receive about $11 million. And this money will likely to come by the next school year. So we can coordinate that for learning loss mitigation. The federal government added 2 new allowable expenditures, which is related to facilities. So we can use the money not only for learning loss mitigation, but for facilities to improve the ventilations and the safety of students. CARES Act Part 3. So shortly, either before or after President Biden took office, he proposed something called the American Rescue Plan. And this is a $1.9 trillion plan. So collectively with the 3 acts, we're looking at about $5 trillion altogether. 2.2 trillion, 0.9 trillion, and now 1.9. So this plan is still a proposal. Congress has not approved it just yet. It will provide an additional $170 billion for schools. For K-12 is about 130. And on top of that, about $350 billion for state and local government, and where the state can use that to supplement education funding should they choose to. So how much of that money we're gonna get, we don't know because it's still a proposal. So back at home, at the local level at ABC, we have, because of the pandemic, we have declining enrollment. It's here and it's real. And this year we are down about 728 students. The bulk of it is at elementary level. We are down 539, and then at the middle school. Pre the pandemic last year, we were down about 170 students. So normally we down about that, but this year in particular, we get hit very hard. And to remind the board, remember this year, the state hold harmless us, not just us, but all school district on ADA, because they know that everyone's going to take a hit in terms of enrollment and attendance. But next year, we don't have that provision. So this declining enrollment will hurt us in 22-23. And in that year, we will lose about $7 million in LCFF funding. So that's that. On top of that, we have pension costs to worry about. STRS is the pension system for certificated employees, and CalPERS is for classified employees, and rates are expected to go up for PERS, but not STRS. So at least that is some good news. So every year we have, on the natural costs that just go up automatically, such as health and welfare benefits, step and column, and pension costs. And now when you add declining enrollment to that, we have a bigger problem. Just to remind the board, this is only the beginning of the process. By the time May comes, the governor is going to change his proposal. And by the time the state legislature act on his proposal, and by June, when we have a final state budget, it will be very different. So it's very fluid. This is just the information we have at this point, and just know that it's going to be fluid. But the takeaway is that at least next year is better than this year, right? This year we get flat funding. Next year we get additional federal funds. We're going to get a COLA plus many different programs, one-time programs proposed by the governor. Madam President, that is the end of my information item.
Thank you, Tuan. Now I'm going to put on the floor now. Ask my colleague, do you have any questions? The first person will be our clerk, Mr. Nishii.
Actually, do I need to ask whether there's a public comment?
There was no public comment for this item, information item.
Okay, so I only have 3 questions. One is regarding the increase in the instructional time, which I like is a great idea, but I'm not necessarily going to be the one doing the teaching. Increasing the educational time from 180 to 185, does that mean the teachers who are currently teaching are going to be doing the extra 5 days? Because I've heard that the teachers are exhausted, that this online learning is not easy, and that's why you have the professional development days on Wednesday, but that they're doing triple duty. How do we address that?
Yeah, we can. So anytime there's a change in working condition, including right now in the current contract, the teachers teach 184 days, right, per year, where 4 days consider non-students day, including PD, and we have 180 instructional days. Anytime we modify that, we must negotiate with the teacher union. So the state can mandate that, and it could be the law, and we have to follow the law, but we have to be at the table and negotiate with the unions the impact of that.
So in other words, they wouldn't necessarily be teaching those extra 5 days. It could be a different individual.
So again, if it's the state mandate, and if it's the law, we have to follow that. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to negotiate it, right? So it depends on the wording of the requirement. If the grant comes in a form that, yes, you may use it for that, but if you're not required to, so let me answer it clearly. We have to negotiate with the union regardless, whether it's mandated or not.
All right. 25 cases per 100,000. Does that mean we're in purple, or does that mean red, or is it a totally different?
Anytime you are above 8, you are in red. I'm sorry, you're in a purple. So you can only get to red when you're at 7 or below.
Okay. So then we'd be purple, but still open if it's 25 and above. And this is, I know the law hasn't changed.
Correct.
So this is still just a proposal.
I call it deep purple.
We're still in purple, but we're opening.
Yes, sir.
And then the last question is, we had an application for a waiver for K2 and special ed, if I'm not mistaken. Where is that application? I mean, are we still in line? Are they still accepting it? How is that?
So I'll answer that, and I'll ask Dr. Mayfield if she have anything to add. The governor proposal, if it were to get approved, will do away with the waiver, right? So just know that, but it's a proposal. So now that it's still a proposal, I'm going to ask if Dr. Mayfield have anything to add about the waiver process and where we are.
Thank you so much. Our waiver was actually for childcare. And so we were seeking to get a childcare waiver to provide access to students to come on campus for instructional support during the day. Unfortunately, we still have not been approved. It's been a very slow and tedious process. As Mr. Nguyen said, the state is no longer offering the K2 waiver. So that option is no longer available to us. And we are still pursuing our childcare waiver and hope to hear back from them soon.
But Dr. Mayfield, I thought I've gone to some schools and they seem to have daycare centers.
So those, it's a different funding source. So those are our after school ACES programs. It's a Prop 49 funded program, federally funded program. And because they're operating under 30 hours a week, they do not require a waiver. And so those programs at our 9 schools can provide childcare. We have to keep the staff under 30 hours a week. And because of how they're funded, they don't require a waiver. They are qualified to provide childcare. ABC is not a childcare provider. We are a K-12 education institute. And so we have to actually apply as a district to actually provide childcare. So it's 2 different criteria that's required. So they're covered under a different type of, they qualify to provide childcare, as long as they're under 30 hours.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So there's no other questions, so I'm going to move to the next one, information item 1.1-2. Thank you, Twandell, appreciate it, and thank you, Dr. Valencia. So 1.1-1, results of site visit reviews and uniform compliant data for 2019 to 2020. Dr. Su, please.
Thank you very much, President Tsai. the results of our site visits and reviews and possible complaints is for 2019 through 2020. And I'm so pleased that when they reviewed our 4 schools, Aloha, Betty, Ferguson, and Hawaiian Elementary School, we got an exemplary in each of those categories for their site visits. So this is, and there were of course no complaints at that time.
Thank you, Dr. Su. Next one's 1.3-1, Quarterly Williams Settlement Compliance Report for October to December 2020. Dr. Su, please.
Thank you. This is the second quarter report from October the 1st to December the 31st. There were no complaints in terms of instructional materials because we always present that to the board in October. There were no complaints regarding facilities or teacher vacancy or misassignments.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Su. Now we are going to open the floor to my colleague for board members' reports. Any board member reports?
Maybe in order, Madam President.
Okay, let me do one at a time. All of a sudden, everyone type it in. Okay, let me see the next board report. We're starting with, first we're starting with Dr. Rios, and next one will be board member Mr. Beach. Following in, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Rios, please.
So I just wanted to take a moment to really applaud our board and moving forward with the equity officer. I think it's an important path we're moving towards. I also like to point out that, this position will go into effect next year. And this year that it continues to be our job as a district to work on equity and, address those issues of that have been brought up. And that falls on all of us. So again, good job. I'm proud of our board, but at the same time, I'd like to remind us that the work is still much more work to do. Thank you.
Agree with you, Dr. Rios. Thank you very much. The next, after Brett, board member Mr. Brett, that will be Ernie, our clerk, then Mike, and then our VP, Mrs. Su, yeah. So board member Ms. Beach, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have a few items. I had an interesting Zoom call today with Varun Budwari. He's a senior at Whitney High School, and he wants to promote a new program called Book X. And basically what he wants to do is sell used SAT and other books to students, or kind of be the conduit with a website to help them save money to get used books. So I told him I would take a look at his proposal and forward it on to the rest of my board colleagues to see if that's something we'd want to push forward to the district. But I really like this kid's initiative, and I offered to help him. Several weeks ago, board member Eugenio and I went and toured the Community Family Guidance Center in Cerritos. I want to thank Victor Sanchez and Bill Cinco for giving us the tour. Mike and I learned a lot about how many kids are feeling depressed and suicidal these days, and it really was sad. At this point, they're not even accepting new students, so I was disappointed to hear that. Mike and I also attended the AAUW meeting where the Whitney High School Black Alumni Association presented on equity efforts, and I really enjoyed the presentation greatly and wanted to thank them. I've been in touch with City Manager Art Galucci and Mayor Pro Tem Chong Bo in the city of Cerritos. They're still in the process of trying to get vaccines, and as soon as I hear anything, I'll immediately email the entire board. I also wanted to thank Juarez Elementary and the principal there for, on March 5th, they're hosting the National Read Aloud Day, and they honored the late Jim Edwards, and they're having that event in his honor. So Connie was very touched that they're doing that, and I'm going to provide some type of virtual reading myself. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with ABCFT to hear their concerns about in-person instruction, and we'll be attending the Black Family Circle College Fair workshop tomorrow night. Finally, I just wanted to thank our teachers. This pandemic has been extremely hard on everybody. I, as a parent, appreciate them greatly, taking care of my kids all day in virtual school. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Su and our entire executive staff and cabinet here at ABC. putting that proposal together for the Safe Schools reopening by February 1st had to have been a monumental task. And I wanted to thank you all personally for all your hard work as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Board Member Mr. Beach. You are participating and connecting directly to our local city and the community. And thank you for your hard working. Next one will be Clerk Mr. Nishi.
Thank you, Madam President. Just quickly, CSD report, they have a new delegate director, Leighton Anderson from Whittier Union School District. There's going to be a new pacer for the CSVA, California School Board Association. His name is Nicholas Cabeza, and he's talking about the budgetary impacts that we're having in terms of full and fair funding, in terms of getting more money for the schools. Wanted to thank several of the board members, Michael Eugenio, Sophia Tse, Madam President, Councilmember Chung Vo and Frank Yokoyama for attending the fundraiser for Nixon and for also attending the one for Kennedy. That was, the schools that are having a hard time raising money. So we need to show up to these events. It's really important. It's hard to get money, and so I'm glad that we have some leaders that are showing up to these things. Lastly, I'd like to know about how we're going to be vaccinating our teachers. It's great that we have this. Oh my gosh, I know that they worked really hard. They impacted everybody in trying to get this application together to get us back to school. So the other part is that I know Dr. Sue is working hard to get our teachers some vaccinations too. And I look forward to hearing a report about that, and as well teacher grading and things like that, and sports, and how we're going to be doing getting back to normal on some of this stuff and being safe at the same time. Finally, regarding this equity officer position, here's the thing. I mean, we saw what happened in the Capitol. The ignorant Capitol protesters. I feel sorry. I just don't know that our educational system did well by them. I just, it's one of those things. We even have elected officials who believe that the school shootings are staged. The only way we address this crazy false information, false news, whatever it is through education, through an equity officer, through ethnic studies training, through these committees that we're creating. It's not just one act, not just a resolution. It's not just a committee. It's a combination of all these things. It's not this equity officer, and that's why the pay was kind of an important issue. Is not just going to be talking to one person. They're going to be talking to every single principal and coordinating with the entire district in making sure that we have a good program and something where we can all be proud of and know that we have learned from our past. I think I just saw something about MLK's granddaughter is only 12. Racism is still within our lifetime. It's still here. There are people who believe this Holocaust didn't happen, and yet we still have Holocaust survivors to attest to these facts. We need, this is why this district is so important. So I thank the other board members, and I don't get everything I want all the time, but I think this position is important. And I thank Dr. Rios for championing this particular situation. So that is all, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one will be board member Mr. Eugenio.
Thank you, Madam President. On January 9th, I attended Assemblywoman Christina Garcia's MLK food giveaway at Cerritos College. I was in attendance with Madam President Sophia Tse and Clerk Ernie Nishi. On January 13th, I took a tour also with Mr. Brad Beach, the Community Family Guidance Center in Cerritos, and the tour was hosted by Bellflower Councilman Victor Sanchez. On January 16th, I met with Ms. Jennifer R. Prudhomme Booker on Whitney High School Black Alumni Association's progress in community, diversity, inclusion, authenticity, and partnership with ABC Unified School District and Whitney High School. I also attended Jennifer Prudhomme Booker and Mrs. Megan Ashley King Mitchell's presentation on January 21st on the importance of cultural representation and support for people of color. This club with La Palma Cerritos AAUW. Also on January 20th, I attended Kennedy Academy's fundraiser at Biology in Cerritos Town Center. Also in attendance was Madam President Sophia Say and Clerk Ernie Nishi. And lastly, I was invited by Principal Balbuena of Juarez Academy to read it aloud virtually, and that will be on March 5th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next one will be our VP, Ms. Su.
And on January 16th, I attended the Strategic Planning Board Advisory Committee, and Dr. Valencia did present in detail of safely opening school. We have the three models, the virtual online, the hybrid, and then another model. I mean, we're preparing in every way to prepare for however it opens up, but and also to meet the needs of the families. Some families want to stay virtual, and we want to keep the virtual education strong. And at the same time, there's a need for opening and doing hybrid, and to also prepare for that too. And what are the pros and cons, and to survey the parents and so forth. So it was a very educational, informative, a lot of information, and that whole preparation for the grant for February 1st, but didn't pass, but ABC was ready. So that was very encouraging. So we're working hard. Thank you for Dr. Valencia and her team for putting all that together in such a short time on behalf of our district. Thank you very much. And because I'm a parent also, I get emails and announcements. And one thing that caught my attention was, during the Black History Month in February, every school in our district is doing something. I saw the Carmenita, they have a whole week doing activities to understand each other's culture, diversity, tradition. It's just all these activities. And I just want to applaud that even though we didn't have the equity officer yet, the school have been doing this already. And I know that sometimes our staff feel like, oh, we're doing that already, but you get questions and words on like, oh, why aren't we doing this? But if we look carefully, like the Peace Builders Bridge, that we do that. I miss that because I need to be reminded of that Peace Builders commitment, because there's a lot of positive things that we are doing, and I hope that ABC will be a forerunner in continuing to be an example of doing things that's proactive, not damage control, starting at a kindergarten level, even TK level. That's what education is all about, is to educate our children to respect each other's culture and the background and the languages, and learning the history from fact. So I want to say thank you to all the educators who are implementing this cultural activities in appreciation to the Black History Month, to really, I hope that we can really learn the history from, what happened in the Black History Month, and to learn the heroes, especially like Martin Luther King. He's a hero of our nation, right? So I hope that we can learn all these things, especially for new immigrants. I know that my sister and my daughters who learned and who was raised in this country appreciate what Martin Luther King did and the civil rights movement. But the new immigrants who came as an adult, this is all foreign to them. And this is why I hope the equity officer can be sensitive and be mindful of some of these parents who just immigrated, who doesn't really know the history. So some of these things is very helpful to understand each other's culture, so I hope this rolls out with our equity officer. I'm very hopeful, and thank you very much. And I know that pandemic is difficult for everyone, especially concerned about the mental health. And I really hope to see the sports outdoor activity open up for our students. You know, as soon as it's safe, I hope that even though we continue the virtual, we could certainly do some sports activities so that the kids have some outlet too. So let's all be patient, encourage each other, and to build our schools together. Thank you very much. That is all.
Thanks, VP, Ms. Su. Next one will be our Dr. Abdaka. Dr. Abdaka, please.
Madam President, you're the first among equals. You can call me Chris if it's a lot easier. I don't mind.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for understanding that. Thank you for understanding.
I wanted to open with saying that I do stand in solidarity with our students, teachers, and stakeholders with the concerns that you've shared, not just tonight, but over the years since I was first elected to this board. And I want to recommit, my dedication to being an advocate for you, not just tonight, but in meetings past. Obviously, sometimes it's the minority vote. Sometimes it's 6-1. Sometimes it's 4-3. Sometimes it's 5-2. What I would bring up is to make sure that you know every single one of us is elected by you. And so it's very important, though, that the public know that we do answer to you. And I've heard some comments before where folks say that we don't think that we do, or that we're independent. We're not. So you know that. Secondly, the Community Family Guidance Center, I'm so glad that it came up today because it's an amazing resource. It's part of our MTSS, our multi-tiered support systems of support in our district. And as a former board member and a current board member, friend of the board for the Family Guidance Center, if you've never heard of it, definitely look them up. If you can support them in any way, whether it's volunteering or contributing, pledging, please do. Everything that goes to that center goes directly back into our community, especially here in Hawaiian Gardens. You've seen the change, and the services that they've offered really are changing lives, especially during the pandemic. I sat during the Legislative Policy Committee and was glad to see some familiar faces and welcome the new ones. It's been a while since I've sat on that committee, and it was very informative, and I got to learn a lot about how we're adjusting our laws, our bylaws here. And also, I'll end with this, it is Black History Month. And I'm not going to give you any famous quotes. I'm not going to say, that, everything is rosy and cherry. If anything, I wanted to say that, I am struggling with the vote that we took today for an equity officer, and the fact that we are in Black History Month. And, I look forward to building out that position. Ideally, it would be something that has some teeth to it, right? That's something that, will grow and will develop into a position of prominence where, people will look at the equity officer the way that they look at any other person in power here in our district. And I think that's very important. And I would remind my colleagues that that's also how we vote, and what we spend our money on is also a reflection of who we are and the values that we espouse. And I am glad that we voted 7-0. I'm glad that, we're going to get the ball rolling. However, it's my opinion that we do have much more work to do. And with that, Madam President, I say thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Abadaka. I appreciate the work that you talk about it. I really sincerely appreciate. So now I want to make a couple of things, which is on January 9th. And I also attended with my colleague, Mr. Nishii, and board member Mike Eugenio. And we're attending the food drive, and really everything has shown on that day. We had so many people came. I believe it was 2,300 people came on that day for the food drive. So there's a need for our district community members. And I'm glad, and I also was told by the staff, the Christina Garcia, which is Assembly woman, District 58. Staff has mentioned if we identify any parent who has a financial food issue, we can contact them. They will we'll connect to them. They will help us. Just want to let everyone know. And January the 20th, yeah, I too also attending PTA fundraising for Kennedy Academy School. It's really great. I mean, not just we'll go there to support them. On that night, I don't have to cook. I bought so beautiful 2 pizza with under $14.99. Well, not just support our school, but also support the local business people. So the couple things I really like to spend time with my colleague and the public. For my new role, actually, I decided I feel there's a need for improving our communication um, with elected officials, such as County Supervisor Ms. Jennifer Hong. I emailed that to them. I CC to my colleague. The email really has the intention that two things is connected with them. Make sure with communication is a two-way, not one way. I also want to make sure I mentioned to Supervisor Ms. Dennis Hong, and I said we would like to offer our area for the vaccine. I know there's a need. Unfortunately, I was told I also connected to the representative from Dennis Hong, which is our former board member, Ms. Linda Johnson. I also asked her to please consider our place as one of the vaccine sites. I'm willing to take the challenge, and I know I also email reminds my board member this is what we're going to do. I think we need to connect it with the other areas so that way we can provide a service to our parents, our students, our teachers, especially on the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine issue. So we are working on that. And I also need my board member to support me when it's really actually doing that. I'd like all of us to join this project. The second thing is I also, I want to thank you, Dr. Abdaka reminds me about our Senator, Ms. Sanchez was over Linda Sanchez was over the Washington during the riot time, protesting time, and reminds me. So I sent a letter to her. I really appreciate Dr. Abdaka reminds me of that. And then she deserved our letter to send the sympathy, and we wish her well, everything, and which is very risky when she's there, life risk. So the third one is I sent the tote bag to my board member. The tote bag has meaning for that. Was made by TSC family as a gift to my colleague to remind you the social distance happened to among us, but that doesn't mean that we don't do interaction with others. So, and hopefully when it's opened up, the bag will serve you to put your information in the bag, such as proclamation when you go to school to present the plaque or go to the city. And the last part, I really wish my turn during my time this time, I wish my board member will still continue, go to the city they choose to be a liaison for that city, go to the meeting. What I discussed with our secretary, Danielle, and our communication officer, Mr. Smith, if we have any special item or something that we'd like to share with the community, such as the city of Cerritos, Acacia, Hawaiian Garden, Norwalk, and I hope my colleague will support me, go there and give a presentation about what is the current update our school issue, so that way they understand what's going on in our district, what we're doing to provide the service to the community. I'd be really appreciate. And please contact, and Danielle will schedule, will let you know if you want to go, and she will contact the city and let them know that you will be there. She'll also provide the information with you. And also Mr. Scott Smith will provide the information that you will need to present during the city council meeting. Okay. Besides that, I know this goes to the closing the Valentine's time. I wish everyone, my colleague, our staff, and our community happy Valentine. And this is the time, or not just only Valentine time, we love each other, caring about each other's, but it's all year 2021. I wish everyone's well. So any other comment, any discussion? If none, I'm going to the next one. It will be announcements, which is our next board meeting will be Tuesday, February the 16th, 2021, 7 p.m. And that will be a visual meeting. Following committee meeting will be Strategic Planning Board Advisory Committee on Tuesday, which is February 23, 2021 at 6 p.m. Virtual meeting. Legislative Policy Board Advisory Committee, which is on Wednesday, February the 24th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. a virtual meeting. The Finance and Audit Board Advisory Committee, Tuesday, the February 25th, 2021, 6 o'clock, a virtual meeting. One of the things I do want to remind the board that we don't have diversity unit and equity meeting yet, because we're waiting for all our board members find the position out. Once the position all appointed, we're starting that meeting coming soon, the committee meeting. Yes, so please don't forget, give your information about your appointee. The next one will be special events. The Magnet Schools Parent Informational Meeting, which is on Thursday, February the 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. The days of remembrance, Lincoln Day holiday, which is on February 8, 2021. All school and the district offices are closed. The President's Day holiday, February 15, 2021. All school and district offices are closed. The next item will be second public comment section. Do we have any public comment on the second section? Clerk,
Mr. Smith? We do. We have some
We have 7. Okay, go ahead.
So the first one is Patricia King. Patricia King, please unmute. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead, Patricia.
Dial 6 or on mute. Maybe we can come back to her.
He dropped off, so we'll go to the next one, which is James Hunter Mitchell. Please unmute, Mr. Mitchell. Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
Hello, hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And to the board and all of the members, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for letting us sit in during this discussion and hearing how involved you guys are on trying to find a qualified member for the equality, and we really do appreciate that. As a parent of Cerritos ABC Unified, I know that representation is definitely key, and just hearing that we are doing our due diligence is definitely a step forward. Being in the world and being a member of some big time firms, we know that this doesn't just take one person to try to kind of find a balance on making people aware and making the staff aware, but it takes a huge kind of effort. And I know that was kind of addressed during these talks on at least getting somebody situated first and seeing how they can bring influence and direction. But I really do think the department is necessary. Just being in the field that I'm in, I know that we have a huge team that brings a lot of these lights to the table. So going forward, I think it's definitely key to continue that process and make this more of a department and make more of a presence for that. On top of that, I just want to just continue on saying that I know that people have addressed that this is Black History Month, but this also goes for just the entire kind of realm of making sure that everybody has a representation to the table. And me being an African American person, I know that we always want to educate our kids on every culture. We always want to make sure that we educate them on being those individuals that can bring knowledge to each other when it comes to their personal experiences, and also when it comes to shining light on their upbringing and things like that. So thank you guys for continuing to push the envelope on this, and I thank you for letting us sit in during these talks and find a good spot to continue to develop. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Megan Mitchell.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, board members
and Dr. Sue. As a parent of an ABC student, I want to say that I appreciate the discussion regarding the equity officer position. I wholeheartedly agree with the passion and sentiment that Dr. Rios showed tonight, specifically regarding the fact that the position of equity officer should not be done hastily. It needs to be done right, and it needs to be done with great care and great conviction. It's incredibly disappointing that we continue to expect people to keep working due to their own personal convictions. We already asked teachers to do that enough, but that's a whole different subject that we won't get into tonight. And while conviction and dedication is important to this specific position, it's not going to pay the bills, and it's not going to provide us with the platform to offer this position to someone who can truly not only understand the needs of our school, but really bring about the change that our district is facing. I think what is really frustrating is continuing to hear that this position should be a stepping stone or should be looked at as a way to move up, when what this position really needs is someone who is dedicated to students who are marginalized and students that don't have the privilege of living life unaffected. Our students are suffering because the people in charge don't understand how to support them, because they don't ever have to actually walk in their shoes. And I love that Dr. Rios was able to tap into her own experiences, especially as a woman of color, and knows that it's oftentimes not how people address you, but it's the policies and decisions that these people are making that truly is what's causing the disparities. ABC is definitely making steps in the right direction, but this is an uphill battle and a steep mountain to climb. And while the willingness to open a position for an equity and diversity officer is a step in the right direction, this step isn't going to get us across the finish line. It's part of our role as ABC parents and stakeholders to advocate for our children, countless other children, and our entire community. And the fact that we are still having to have conversations about the role of this officer and the position and its classification is very disheartening, where we still have schools that have cultures of anti-Blackness, anti-people of color, and anti-anything that isn't white, cisgendered, able-bodied, heterosexual. We have so many students that don't fall into this perfect picture norm of society. And we have to think not how their grades are doing, because their grades may or may not be doing fine, but nobody cares about grades when students are suffering and having to deal with the internal trauma that they're facing when they go to schools, which are the places that are supposed to provide them with safety. There are no saviors in this narrative. This is not a fairy tale. One person did not create this issue, and it's going to take more than one person to resolve this problem. Furthermore, I really think that the board needs to re-examine the purpose of having an equity officer. It is not to solely address achievement and academic disparities. And while achievement gaps, quote unquote, because that's a word that a lot of people like to use, while achievement gaps are often approached as what are students lacking,
1 minute.
It really needs to be looked at as what is causing them to not connect to their teachers, what is causing them to not perform well in schools, what disparities are ingrained in our system that continue to perpetuate systemic racism in places where students should feel safe, in places where students should feel valued. Achievement is a consequence of inequity, but there are too many other consequences that are long lasting, like trauma. And trauma has nothing to do with grades. If we want this position to be successful, there not only has to be an increase in salary, but we really have to take a look at it. Our neighboring districts, such as Long Beach Unified School District, that has seen tremendous gains after implementing their Equity, College, and Career Readiness Department. Multiple surrounding districts have created a department and a team that is specifically built to address disparities and discriminations faced by students, staff, and the community at large. But Long Beach Unified has really set the bar high. It's not by chance that LBUSD's creation of their Equity Access College and Career Readiness branch under academic services has allowed them to now rank first nationally.
Sorry, Megan, your 5 minutes were up. The next person to speak.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to speak is Sylvester Ani. Mr. Ani, please unmute. You have 5 minutes.
I mean, first off, I got to salute, Sister Mitchell on everything that she just said right now. And I think, salute Dr. Rios as well. I think one of the words for the night, phrases from the night came from Dr. Nishi, where he said that you shouldn't have to take a pay cut to do something that you love. And in education, period, we've been asking people to take pay cuts to do something that they love, and that's not right. And when we're talking about this diversity officer position, think about what it means when you're asking this person to take a pay cut to do this job. Ask yourself, how much do I value this person if I'm asking them to take a pay cut to do this job? How important is it to me? Are we just doing it just to get something by? Or are we doing this because we're being intentional about what we're trying to do to solve the issues in our schools? Also, to go along with Black History Month, there's more of Black history than Dr. Martin Luther King. I love Dr. King. But there's individuals like Fannie Lou Hamer, who did a lot of work for voting rights in Mississippi, Medgar Evers, James Baldwin, phenomenal poet and writer, Fred Hampton, who was leading a rainbow coalition of poor people to address the issues that we're dealing with today still and what they stem from. So Black history doesn't just stop with Dr. Martin Luther King. It's far, vast, and wide, which is why we have to have a commitment to ethnic studies as well. On that too, with ethnic studies. And if we're talking about really getting to the root of the issues that we're facing right now, not just within our schools, but as a country, we have to be unapologetic, unafraid, and intentional about calling out white supremacy within the country and acknowledging that it's alive in every single one of our institutions, that it's embedded and built in every single one of our institutions, that system is not broken, but it's working as it was intended to from the jump. And the real, and when we're talking about Black history, it's important to highlight the good. But at the same time, we can't water down or whitewash all the struggle that came to get us to this point. A lot of times we talk about the year 1776. I mentioned it earlier. We also got to talk about the year 1619, because that's when slavery first came to this country. That's how we started building our economic landscape. These are the type of discussions that we have to be unafraid about when we're having conversations about diversity, inclusion, equity within our schools. Also, speaking on not paying or not paying people or not asking people to take a pay cut to do things that they love, same thing goes with teachers. Before this pandemic started, we had it seemed like a school shooting every other week. Mental health was in a crisis, and it seemed like the sky was falling us before the pandemic took us out of it. Now we're in the pandemic. Now the mental health is in a worse place. I just saw recently a school in Las Vegas that reopened schools because of the suicides that were going on within the school. Now we're going to throw everybody back in there with all of this. And what have we really changed? What have we really addressed? In terms of teacher salaries, pay, in my opinion.
Left, Sylvester?
1 minute? Okay, thank you. In terms of teacher salary pay, I have to go look at this ABCFT. Teachers need to be paid at least starting salary, At least 70,000, 75,000, at least to start. That's period. Because we've been defunding education for years and nobody's had any issue with it. And then we wonder why we have the issues that we have now. It starts with education. Education and legislation. Those two things tied together. If we're trying to get to where we need to get to, education, legislation. Okay. And we have the resources to do it. The question is, do we have the will to get it done? And that's what I challenge everybody on this board to commit to. We need to pay our teachers more. We need to improve the environment that they're working under. It's enough time that we ask them to take a pay cut to do something that they love. But no, I'm going to compensate you for doing what you love. Because when you look at all the wealth that's been created in this country, you look at Elon, you look at Jeff Bezos, you look at Chamath, they were all taught by a teacher. Teachers bring in billions of dollars.
Sylvester, your time is up.
Thank you.
The next speaker in the
Sorry, before we go on, Scott, I know that our board meetings should end at 10:30. The board has to vote to extend the time limit tonight.
Madam President, I'd like to be recognized.
So we're going to be extending our hour to 30 minutes. Would that be okay for our board member? That should be finished. How many more people on public comments? Board member Nishii?
Mr. Smith, how many more?
One right now.
I'm sorry?
Just one.
Just one? Okay, so 5 minutes. And I asked for 30 minutes. Would I be okay for board member? If you say yes, Daniel, can you call roll call?
So moved.
Thank you. Daniel, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, Dr. Apodaca motioned. Was there a second?
Nishi, second.
Thank you. Dr. Apodaca?
Yes.
One moment, I'm sorry. Mr. Beach?
Yes.
Dr. Eugenio?
Yes.
Mr. Nishi?
Yes.
Dr. Rios?
Yes.
Mrs. Say?
Yes.
Mrs. Yu?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Daniel. Go ahead, Ms. Nishi.
Last public speaker
is Maggie. Maggie, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for extending the time and for your considerations over the issues that you mentioned today. I'm speaking to address a few things that I see that have come across in previous meetings. One about the equity officer. I just want to, re-emphasize that why we're doing this is because our students are not just here to raise our property taxes or whatever. They're not here to just move us from the purple segment to the green segment in some graph. They're people, and our schools are meant for safe havens for them to learn about who they are, what world they're going to be a part of, and what positions they are currently in. So that means taking them as human beings, understanding that they do walk in with trauma that are not just based in race, but also in ableism, also in gender norms, also in things like whether or not their family is system impacted, someone in their life is incarcerated currently. All these different factors are exacerbated by race. So the equity officer is going to be in charge of looking into these many intersecting experiences these students have and are navigating without education, telling them like, hey, this is racism and this is how you can navigate it, without someone telling them, you know what, your life is worth it. This grade that you have on this paper, it's not really telling you who you are as a person. It's just a standard, but who you are and surviving and feeling like you're a person of value is more important. this is the type of thing that equity officer is going to be trying to change in our school. Making a pay cut is telling those kids, yeah, you know what, actually grades are more important. Actually, you know what, that conversation about why you shouldn't end your life, let's not really delve into it, because maybe someone is going to have to do more research about heteronormativity, and no one wants to talk about homosexuality. We actually are asking a lot of this, a lot from the equity officer, and race is just a big starting point, and it's a huge task. So maybe I ask of you board members to do a little bit more research on your own about intersecting identities, not just about race, but also about class, also about ableism, also about gender. A lot is going to be unpacked by our equity officer, and you're going to have to be able to understand that, what they're bringing to you. I'm not trying to say that you're not qualified. I'm trying to say that we need to be ready, already have that information fresh in our minds, so they don't have to burden it on their own, and you're going to be able to sit with uncomfortable decisions like giving them money that they deserve and need to serve our students. On those similar note, sexual harassment was on our agenda last meeting, but only because of, I guess, the new policies came up, we have to read it out loud. And as ironically, Dr. Sue, who had gaslit a survivor last meeting, had said, we do have policy, but it's ineffective. In the month of Black History, I want to underscore that we're trying to—
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. We are trying to honor the voices of current advocates. And I want to say that a student advocate who is a Black woman, young woman, has been advocating for 7 months, and none of her ideas have made it onto your agenda. And I just want to leave you with that and say you need to do more to actually do what you say you're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one more public comment, and that's from a phone number ending in 488. Go ahead, phone number that's ending in 488.
Hello?
There we go. We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. After multiple technical difficulties, I finally got through. Thank you so much for your patience, too. Good evening, board and Dr. Sue. My name is Patricia King. I'm a retired Whitman teacher, the mother of students that are products of ABC, and currently the grandmother of an ABC student. The events that led up to the creation of an equity officer position in the district broke my heart. I had to have a tough conversation with my own children and had to come to the realization that my own children faced discrimination and lack of representation in the district where I spent my entire career of over 40 years. As a grandparent and a stakeholder in ABC Unified School District, I encourage the board to learn from Long Beach Unified's example and to create an equity college and a career department. Since the creation of the department and team, our neighboring district has seen nothing but positive changes and upward mobility. I know that ABC has the means of creating positive change. I just ask that the board commit to that change and to do it right from the start. I believe that ABC can begin the healing process, and I have faith that we will become stronger and more unified. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last public speaker. Board Clerk Nishi.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You.
Madam
Now,
President?
thank you. Thank you. May I have a motion to move adjourn for tonight's board meeting?
So moved, Brad.
Nishi, second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And we move to adjourn. Thank you and good night. Have a good
Good night,
day.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.